Chapter 157. Yao Sheng didn't intend to continue fighting against Qin Wentian. What he was facing now was a war beast ranked in the top 10 of the War Beast Index. If he could kill it, he would be able to condense an astral soul from the 5th heavenly layer and condense one of the top 10 astral souls in the War Beast Index. An intense ambition brewed in Yao Sheng's heart. On the contrary, the fear he felt was much fainter. After all, in the spirit beast testing grounds, even if he died, only his consciousness would be destroyed and he wouldn't be able to enter again. To the people of Sky Demon Palace, even if their lives were in danger, they would still choose to take the risk for the top 10 war beasts in the war beast chart. How about we work together this time? Yao Sheng spoke to Yu Qingfeng, Qian Mengyu and the rest. The eyes of the crowd flickered. It wasn't impossible for them to work together, but even if they managed to kill the flood dragon, who would be the one to obtain the final reward? If one of them managed to obtain the spirit of the flood dragon, they would definitely be hunted down by the others. Not long ago, Qin Wentian only managed to obtain the spirit of a war beast ranked in the 90th plus, yet he was already being hunted down. Yi Yu, what do you think? Yu Qingfeng asked a young man beside him. This young man was clad in a robe with constellations inscribed on it, exuding a sense of transcendence. This young man was from the Venerate Heavens sect. The rankings of the 36 heavenly dippers were determined by the Venerate Heavens sect. In the Grand Xia Empire, the rankings of the Venerate Heavens sect were the most authoritative. Their rankings of Wuxiu had influenced many countries in the Grand Xia Empire, even spreading to the Chu country. Hence, there was a ranking of the 10 prodigies of the royal capital. Let's work together. Yi Yu nodded, her eyes gleaming with sharpness as she stared at the flood dragon. The group of people spread out, releasing their astral souls as they surrounded the flood dragon. The blue-scaled flood dragon king roared in rage as it rushed towards Yao Sheng. The beast blood in Yao Sheng's body seemed to be boiling as demonic qi towered up into the skies. The wings of the great rock flickered as his body transformed into a beam of light that shot towards the blue-scaled flood dragon king. Puchi. The blue-scaled flood dragon king's sharp claws did not hit Yao Sheng. Yao Sheng's body flashed in the air, and he found a tricky angle to rush to the front of the flood dragon king's head. His agility shocked even Qin Wentian. However, the blue-scaled flood dragon's reaction was also extremely fast. It opened its giant mouth and bit forward, wanting to swallow the opponent in one gulp. Buzz! A resplendent sword light blossomed as Qian Mengyu soared into the air. Numerous sharp swords containing an inextinguishable aura frenziedly pierced into the gigantic mouth of the flood dragon king. This scene caused the blue-scaled flood dragon to close its mouth. At the same time, Yao Sheng's palm transformed into the exploding bear paw and slammed down on the head of the blue-scaled flood dragon. Originally, Yao Sheng and Qian Mengyu had nothing to do with each other, but their teamwork was extremely exquisite. Their timing was incomparably precise. The head of the blue-scaled flood dragon reared backwards. Yao Sheng's attack power was absolutely terrifying, and there was also the effect of vibrations. For a moment, the flood dragon king felt a little dizzy. It lifted its gigantic tail and lashed out, the spikes on its body resembling sharp swords. Yu Qingfeng also dashed out. His movement technique was also the Garuda movement technique from the 9 heavenly realms, allowing him to evade the attacks of the gigantic body as he dashed towards the head of the blue-scaled flood dragon. Yi Yu did the same as well. When they attacked, it was as though they had reached some sort of tacit understanding. All of them aimed their attacks at the head of the blue-scaled flood dragon. If the first attack didn't kill it, they would do it a second time. If the second attack didn't kill it, they would do it 8 times, 10 times. All of them are elites. If it was just one of them, they definitely wouldn't be a match for the blue-scaled flood dragon. But when they join forces, the power they can unleash isn't as simple as adding each other's strength together. When they attack together, the strength of the blue-scaled flood dragon has no way to unleash its full power. Qin Wentian watched on as this fascinating battle unfolded. The green-scaled flood dragon roared in madness as its gigantic body abruptly spun in the air. With a single gulp, it lunged towards Qian Mengyu, allowing the others to attack its body. Die! Qian Mengyu's palms trembled as her astral soul erupted with resplendent sword light. Numerous sharp swords transformed into beams of light as they frenziedly slashed out. The head of the blue-scaled flood dragon slammed forwards, but the sharp swords only managed to leave a few traces of blood on its forehead, unable to injure it at all. Qian Mengyu's body spun in the air, wanting to retreat. But at this moment, the blue-scaled flood dragon had already gone berserk, madly chasing after her, ignoring the frenzied attacks of the others. It had to kill one of them first. This human who loved to stab its mouth with swords was simply too annoying. Qian Mengyu's countenance grew unsightly as she saw the crazed pursuit of her opponent. Although her silhouette was as fast as the wind, how could it be compared to the speed of her opponent's attacks? Very soon, she wouldn't be able to evade the attacks of the blue-scaled flood dragon. Qin Wentian stood not far away from Qian Mengyu. His countenance was incomparably cold as he witnessed this scene. Over here. Qin Wentian called out to Qian Mengyu. Qian Mengyu's lithe figure sprinted in the direction of Qin Wentian, while the body of the blue-scaled flood dragon shuddered unceasingly. Yet, it refused to give up its pursuit. Just as it was about to catch up to her, it opened its ferocious maw and ferociously bit out, wanting to tear Qian Mengyu apart with a single bite. Bzzz. A raging wind gusted by as Qin Wentian executed the Garuda movement technique to the extreme. His body actually dashed into the mouth of the blue-scaled flood dragon. A ruthless glint flashed in the eyes of the blue-scaled flood dragon as it abruptly snapped its jaws shut. Its sharp fangs gleamed with a cold light, as though it could directly crush Qin Wentian into pieces. Woo! A howl of agony rang out, as Qin Wentian's silhouette was like the wind as he retreated from the jaws of the blue-scaled flood dragon. The tip of the ancient halberd pierced right through the jaws of the flood dragon as it tried to close its jaws. The tip of the ancient halberd pierced right through the jaws of the flood dragon. Success! Qin Wentian watched as the tail of the blue-scaled flood dragon violently lashed out, causing it to howl in agony. His silhouette was like a phantom as he dashed towards the head of the blue-scaled flood dragon. His falling mountain palms slammed downwards, and the terrifying force of the impact caused the ancient halberd to penetrate even deeper into the jaws of the blue-scaled flood dragon. Do it! The others all rushed over, frenziedly attacking the head of the blue-scaled flood dragon. The tip of the ancient halberd pierced out from the top of the head of the blue-scaled flood dragon, while the tail of the blue-scaled flood dragon grew weaker and weaker. This fellow is really lucky. The hearts of the spectators mused. Qin Wentian's luck was truly not bad. He actually managed to insert the ancient halberd into the jaws of the blue-scaled flood dragon, causing the ancient halberd to be stuck there, thus giving them an opportunity to take advantage of. The body of the blue-scaled flood dragon gradually turned illusory as it transformed into a beast spirit. Qin Wentian retrieved the ancient halberd, and at the same time, his palms trembled as he prepared to devour the beast spirit. However, the others also did the same. The top 10 ranked beast spirits in the War Beast Index, everyone wanted to fight for them. Roar! The beast spirit of the blue-scaled flood dragon let out a terrifying roar as it lunged towards Qin Wentian. Qin Wentian only felt his consciousness trembling violently as his body turned illusory. Only after retreating with explosive speed did his body return to its original state. Qin Wentian's countenance was extremely unsightly to behold. The consciousness of the blue-scaled flood dragon had already transformed into a beast spirit, yet it was still so tenacious, directly launching an attack on his consciousness. After all, although his body was made of flesh and blood, it was still a body of consciousness. If his consciousness wasn't as strong as his opponent's, he would similarly be destroyed. The roar shook the heavens and earth. Qian Mengyu, Yao Sheng, and the rest were also forced to retreat. Their countenances were extremely unsightly to behold, they had never met such a tough beast spirit before. Towering amounts of beast blood gushed forth from Yao Sheng's body, engulfing the beast spirit. Bzzz, the beast spirit of the blue-scaled flood dragon rushed out, its cold eyes staring down at the crowd. Even if it was only a body of consciousness, there was no way it could devour it. The consciousness of the blue-scaled flood dragon was simply too tyrannical. Its eyes coldly stared at Qin Wentian. It was precisely this person who had destroyed its body. Roar! With a howl of rage, the consciousness of the beast spirit actually dashed towards Qin Wentian. Qin Wentian only felt his consciousness being shaken. A vortex appeared in his palm, and at the instant the beast spirit arrived in front of him, the vortex trembled violently, wanting to swallow it whole. However, that pair of ice-cold eyes stared fixedly at him, shaking his will, causing Qin Wentian's body to turn illusory. Yao Sheng and the rest didn't step forward to help Qin Wentian when they saw this scene. Qian Mengyu's eyes flashed with anxiety, but she had no idea how to deal with this tyrannical beast spirit. Vile beast, you still dare to be so arrogant with just a strand of your consciousness remaining? Qin Wentian's eyes were ice-cold as he stared at the beast spirit. Releasing his great dream astral soul, he abruptly brought the beast spirit into a dreamscape. In the dreamscape, Qin Wentian sat high up in the sky, like an emperor looking down at the tyrannical beast spirit. Vile beast, submit to me! Qin Wentian roared in rage. His voice was like a bolt of lightning from the clear skies, blasting down onto the body of the beast spirit, causing it to tremble violently. It was only a consciousness of a beast spirit, it had no way to resist the corrosion of Qin Wentian's dreamscape. Dream force was a battle of wills, making the other party believe that it was real. How could a mere strand of consciousness be able to resist against it? In the external world, the silhouettes of the beast spirits gradually turned illusory, as though they were slowly being corroded by Qin Wentian. The tyrannical beast spirits seemed to have lost their temper, as though they were about to obediently submit to Qin Wentian. What's going on? Their gazes were fixated on the beast spirit of the blue-scaled flood dragon. It was becoming more and more illusory, as though it would vanish at any moment. This caused a sense of unease to well up in their hearts. Could it be that this fellow could swallow the beast spirit of the blue-scaled flood dragon for himself? Bzzz. The beast spirit of the blue-scaled flood dragon transformed into a wisp of green smoke and entered Qin Wentian's body. Qin Wentian's demonic aura grew increasingly demonic as his black hair fluttered in the wind, exuding a demonic aura akin to that of Yao Sheng. Not good, he's using his consciousness to exit the testing grounds. Yu Qingfeng anxiously shouted. When he was with Qin Wentian, he remembered that Qin Wentian had casually asked him how to exit the testing grounds. Yu Qingfeng didn't think much of it and simply told Qin Wentian that as long as he gradually separated his consciousness from the testing grounds, he would be able to return. However, he needed a certain amount of time to do so, and it was impossible to do so during combat. If not, he would have already been killed. However, Qin Wentian seemed to be making use of the time he needed to devour the beast spirit to prepare to exit the testing grounds. Yao Sheng and the rest also discovered this. Their bodies dashed forward, only to see Qian Mengyu's silhouette flickering as sword lights swept through the air, blocking their path. Qian Mengyu, what are you doing? Yu Qingfeng coldly snorted. Killing the blue-scaled flood dragon is his credit, there's nothing wrong with him devouring the beast spirit, Qian Mengyu coldly replied. Get out of my way. Yao Sheng took a step forward. There's no more time. Yi Yu spoke in a low voice. After which, they only saw Qin Wentian's silhouette transforming into an illusory beam of light, completely disappearing from the testing grounds. This scene caused their countenances to turn extremely unsightly to behold. Qin Wentian, along with the beast spirit of the rank number 9 blue-scaled flood dragon, had left. Chapter 158. In the 7th level of the Emperor Star Academy, Qin Wentian's eyes abruptly opened as a demonic light flashed in his eyes. His entire demonic aura exuded a demonic aura. Qin Wentian didn't make any movements as his consciousness returned to him. He could feel that he had brought back the will of the demonic beasts. At this moment, his consciousness was filled with a tyrannical and violent will. Devouring the will of the demonic beasts. Can I really sense the existence of the astral souls of demonic beasts in the 9 heavenly layers? Qin Wendian murmured in his heart as he closed his eyes and slowly devoured the will of the demonic beasts. After which, he slowly stood up. The door opened, and Qin Wendian slowly walked out, exiting through the door. My will automatically withdrew, and wasn't destroyed. If there's a chance, I still want to enter. Qin Wendian stared at the door. Back then, Luo Tianya wasn't as lucky as him, and his will was destroyed. Hence, he hoped that his son, Luo Qianqiu, would be able to fulfill his wish and enter the 8th level of the Heavenly Star Pavilion. What a pity, what Luo Qianqiu failed to accomplish, was accomplished by him, Qin Wendian. Qin Wendian shifted his gaze onto the second door. According to the notes of the Azure Emperor, as long as he could obtain the top 10 ranked demonic beasts in the War Beast Index, he would be able to enter the 8th level. In that case, he should be able to meet the requirements. Lifting his feet, Qin Wendian walked towards the second door, only to see that there were several diagrams engraved on the door. These diagrams were none other than the top 10 ranked demonic beasts in the War Beast Index. How do I enter? An expression of contemplation appeared on Qin Wendian's face. Anyone who came here could enter the first door, but the second door was tightly shut. Invade the corresponding demonic beast's will. A voice drifted over. Qin Wendian turned his head, but there was no one behind him. The owner of this voice should be the guardian of the 7th level of the Heavenly Star Pavilion. It was as though guarding this level was his eternal mission. Qin Wendian shifted his gaze back, staring at the diagram of the green-scaled flood dragon. After which, a demonic light flashed in his eyes as the will of the beast gushed into it. An instant later, the door began to slowly open. It's open. Qin Wendian stepped into the door. Above his head, there were several diagrams of demonic beasts that glowed with a resplendent light, as though they had a life of their own. In this space, there was also a praying mat. Qin Wendian walked up to it and sat down cross-legged. The astral light in the air started to flow towards his body. Upon seeing such a miraculous scene, Qin Wendian closed his eyes. That flowing light seemed to contain an ancient memory within. That was the memories of the Azure Monarch. Everything in the world cultivates, regardless of humans or demons. It's just that there are differences between humans and demonic beasts. Demonic beasts are gifted in certain aspects, such as their physical bodies and defense. However, humans' ability to comprehend far surpasses that of demonic beasts. That's why humans are able to create all kinds of powerful techniques and powers to fight against the attacks of demonic beasts and break through their strong defenses. They are the favored children of heaven and earth. After demonic beasts grow stronger, they would break through to the heavenly Dipper realm and gain the ability to transform into a human, just like the human Wuxiu. Demons are also pursuing the path of humans, but ultimately, they don't have the innate talent of humans. Even if a demon transformed into a human, they still wouldn't be able to perfectly combine the advantages of both. In that case, if one wants to pursue the path of perfection, there's only one way to do so. Cultivating demonic energy. If there's a human Wuxiu who has the tyrannical physique and defense of demonic beasts, he could use the body of a demon to unleash the innate techniques he's proficient in. In that case, how much more powerful would he be? This memory seemed to be a rhetorical question, yet Qin Wendian's heart pounded with excitement. What a crazy idea, using a human as the foundation to cultivate demonic energy. Actually, among the human Wuxiu, there's already someone who can do this. And that person is none other than the human Wuxiu who possesses a demonic beast astral soul. An astral soul bestows this possibility upon them, allowing them to possess the savagery of demons. But ultimately, there's still a limit to this. However, this can be used as a foundation. If you want to unleash the full potential of a human using demonic energy, you must first have an extremely powerful demonic beast astral soul. If not, there's no meaning to it. As the voice drifted into his ears, Qin Wendian finally understood why the prerequisite to entering this door was to obtain a demonic beast spirit ranked in the top 10 of the War Beast Index. He hoped that the person who entered this door would be able to condense an astral soul from a demonic beast ranked in the top 10 of the War Beast Index. Only then would the Wu Xiu be able to absorb the tyrannical demonic energy from the astral souls. After which, a series of memories frenziedly flowed into Qin Wentian's mind, as the glow of light above his head gradually dimmed. After a long period of time, Qin Wentian finally finished absorbing the memories. When he opened his eyes, a sharp glint of light could be seen flickering within. In his mind, 3 words resounded unceasingly. Fiend transformation art. What a revolutionary cultivation art, what a bold creation. Great waves of shock rocked Qin Wentian's heart. He felt an indescribable sense of respect towards the creator of this cultivation art. Too awesome. The powerful Wu Xiu of the human race was truly too terrifying. He remembered the final words left behind by the Azure Emperor. Back then, I obtained the fiend transformation art by chance, and was deeply shocked by it. I knew that if this cultivation art were to be leaked out, I would definitely be hunted down by the Celestial Palace. Hence, I chose to cultivate it in secret. Unless my life was in danger, I would never use the fiend transformation art. But if there was a day when I died, wouldn't it be my sin? Hence, although I wouldn't impart the fiend transformation art to the descendants of the Azure Emperor Palace in order to avoid calamity, I'm also unwilling to let the fiend transformation art be lost. Qin Wentian understood that the fiend transformation art was similar to the spirit refinement method. Once it was made known to others, it would definitely bring him a calamity. Luckily, the spirit refinement method was a cultivation art that allowed one to condense one's divine energy. At the very most, they would only wonder why his attacks were stronger than others. There were 3 levels to the fiend transformation art. The first level, the fiend body realm. By simulating the circulation of demonic qi in the meridians of demonic beasts, one would be able to forge a tyrannical physique similar to that of demonic beasts. The fiend body realm, not only would one's fleshly body reach the demonic level, one would also need to strengthen one's internal organs to be as tenacious as demonic beasts, exuberant with vitality. At the same level, the vitality of demonic beasts was much more tenacious compared to humans. The second level, the fiend advent realm. By using the yuan energy of powerful demonic beasts as the support, one would be able to condense a terrifying demonic body, akin to a demonic beast. At this level, it would be best if one had a powerful beast-type astral soul. The third level, the fiend transformation realm. At this level, one would be able to easily transform into a demonic beast, perfectly combining the innate talents of both humans and demonic beasts. One would be able to grow the wings of a great rock, roaming the universe, or transform into a demonic dragon, shaking the heavens and earth. Qin Wentian drew in a deep breath, as waves of emotions surged in his heart. The Azure Emperor had actually left behind such a tyrannical cultivation art in the second level. No wonder the prerequisite for entering the third level was to obtain a war beast ranked in the top 10 of the war beast index. From Qin Wentian's point of view, even the war beasts ranked in the 9th or 10th rank would be insufficient in front of the fiend transformation art. It would be best if one could condense a war beast ranked in the top few ranks of the war beast index. Only then would one's demonic energy be even more tyrannical, more suitable for cultivating the fiend transformation art. However, this caused Qin Wentian to be placed in a difficult position. Initially, he wanted to condense a summoning astral soul, but to cultivate the fiend transformation art, a powerful war beast astral soul would be more suitable. Let's not think about it for now. Qin Wentian didn't bother thinking about it. Instead, he started to cultivate the first level of the fiend transformation art. The creator of the fiend transformation art had an extremely deep understanding of the breathing techniques of demonic beasts, and thus created a unique breathing technique. Qin Wentian closed his eyes and calmed his heart as he cultivated. His breathing was erratic, sometimes manic, sometimes slow, before finally reaching a state of equilibrium. As he breathed in and out, his heart pounded, as the astral energy circulated within his lungs. It was as though every time he breathed, his internal organs would throb at the same time, and the throbbing of his heartbeat was extremely intense. Gradually, Qin Wentian entered into a marvelous state. He didn't realize that the blood in his body was boiling, circulating through his veins and meridians, as though it was coordinating with his breathing exercises. 2 days later, when Qin Wentian woke up, he discovered that his cultivation this time around had undergone an astonishing transformation. He couldn't help but feel bewildered. Could it be that he was so talented that he was extremely suitable to cultivate the fiend transformation art? It's time to leave. Qin Wentian stood up and left the Heavenly Star Pavilion. Cultivating the first level of the fiend transformation art required a huge amount of cultivation resources. After exiting, he instructed the Sky Transport Network to send a letter to Francis, telling him to handle this matter. After which, he continued his closed-door seclusion, focusing all his attention on his cultivation. Above the 9 heavenly layers, Qin Wentian's will arrived at the 5th heavenly layer. In front of him, there was an extremely resplendent demonic beast constellation in the shape of a flood dragon, hovering in the air, laughing arrogantly. Within the constellation, a terrifying amount of demonic beast yuan energy could be felt. Indeed, it's so easy to find this constellation. Qin Wentian understood. No wonder so many disciples from the transcendent powers wanted to enter the spirit beast testing grounds. Once they obtained a powerful beast spirit, they would be able to condense a tyrannical war beast astral soul. Outside the place where Qin Wentian was in closed-door seclusion, Fatty Fan Lu, Qin Chuan, and Qin Ya were present as well. "Uncle, is Wentian still cultivating?" Fan Lu asked Qin Chuan. That fellow is really hardworking. He just came back from the Heavenly Star Pavilion, and now he's in closed-door seclusion again. He should have received some sort of inspiration." Qin Chuan replied. Currently, there were many things weighing on his heart. He could clearly see the changes in the Chu country, and his emotions were extremely complicated. Given his intelligence, he naturally understood that his father had been hiding something from him, and it was something extremely important. But now, there was no way for him to exit the Emperor's Star Academy. Those from the royal clan were all watching over him. Currently, the royal clan had given him and Qin Yao an immense amount of pressure, and the Emperor's Star Academy was the one bearing all of it. But now, the royal clan already wanted to make a move against the Emperor's Star Academy. This powerful academy, which the royal clan had always been unable to control, had already become a thorn in the side of the royal clan. The 9 Mystical Palace was located in one of the 9 great continents of Grand Xia. Today, there were many from the 9 Mystical Palace riding on demonic beasts, heading towards the Chu country. Other than the 9 Mystical Palace, there were also other transcendent powers in the Qin continent, such as the Green Cloud Pavilion. The Green Cloud Pavilion towered into the clouds, and was built on top of the 9 mountain peaks. Numerous majestic halls stood in the midst of the misty clouds, resembling a celestial realm. At this moment, in a certain location within the Green Cloud Pavilion, a young lady stood there. This young lady was elegant and cold, and although she was young, she already possessed a great amount of charm. "Miss, do you have any instructions for me?" A person stood in front of the young lady, respectfully asking. "Help me investigate if the 9 Mystical Palace has a small country named Chu under their jurisdiction. If there is, investigate this person named Qin Wentian." The young lady was none other than Qian Mingyu. That fellow was able to snatch away the spirit of a war beast ranked 9th in the War Beast Index. Although it could be said that luck played a huge part in it, it also caused her to be extremely interested in him. She wondered if he would enter the spirit beast testing grounds again. Chapter 159. The yearly sacrifice day had already passed, and the Chu country welcomed a new year. However, at the start of the new year, the people of the Chu country didn't have a peaceful time. The flames of war had already been ignited, and the entire Chu country was filled with the smoke of war. Many of the troops stationed at the borders of the Chu country had already raised their banners to oppose the royal clan of Chu. Nobody would have thought that the peaceful Chu country would be rocked by such a terrifying wave in just a few short days. The authority of the royal clan of Chu was already wavering, on the verge of collapse. Those with more experience could naturally tell that the flames of war that were ignited in a few days wasn't something that could be accomplished in a day or two. Most probably, the royal clan had already been preparing for many years, and was only waiting for a single command from a certain location. Only then would the Chu dragon guards be able to attack with lightning speed, not touching the citizens of the Chu country, and not killing the troops that had submitted to them. In the Chu country, the cultivators of the Chu country didn't care much about the concept of the royal clan. The royal clan was the strongest power in the Chu country, and that was all. Hence, they didn't care who was the ruler of the Chu country, as long as it didn't touch them. Hence, nobody dared to anger the citizens of the Chu country. If all the Wu Xiao in the Chu country were to unite, even the royal clan would collapse. Hence, although the flames of war were blazing, within the borders of Chu, there were still many youths with good talent rushing towards the direction of the royal capital. This was because the various martial academies in the Chu country were about to start their recruitment drive. This was a chance that they had been waiting for over a year. Compared to the royal clan, they were more concerned about their own future in the martial path. And to those with outstanding talent, choosing between the Emperor's Star Academy or the Royal Academy became a difficult choice. After the merger of the Royal Academy and the Godly General Martial Palace, the strength of the Royal Academy was comparable to the Emperor's Star Academy. Not only that, the conflict between the two academies was already an open matter. As the youths of the Chu country gathered in the royal capital, a piece of news was transmitted from the royal capital. Today, the newly merged Royal Academy would bring along their most outstanding disciples to pay a visit to the Emperor's Star Academy. This news instantly swept through the royal capital, attracting the attention of countless people. This visit was extremely important to the decision of the youths. Today, Qin Wentian ended his closed-door seclusion. Although Francis had sent over many precious materials, it was still insufficient for him to cultivate the fiend transformation art. To cultivate the fiend transformation art, the requirement for demonic cores was exceedingly high. But luckily, what made Qin Wentian happy was that he discovered that he was extremely suitable to cultivate the fiend transformation art. It was as though this cultivation art was specially prepared for him. Even his blood seemed to be filled with an indescribable excitement. Qin Wentian inscribed a divine inscription painting, and at the same time, sent a letter to the divine weapon pavilion. He believed that the divine inscription painting would allow him to obtain the resources he wanted. Walking into the courtyard, Qin Wentian took in a deep breath of fresh air. A white silhouette flew towards him, directly leaping into his embrace. "Little rascal, did you miss me?" Qin Wentian rubbed Little Rascal's head as he smiled. Little Rascal's big eyes stared at Qin Wentian, as a smile appeared on its face. It was extremely adorable. "Wentian." Qin Chuan and Qin Yao walked over upon seeing Qin Wentian exiting his closed-door seclusion. "Father, sister," Qin Wentian had a smile on his face, and upon seeing Qin Chuan's furrowed brows, he asked, "Father, is there something on your mind?" "Wentian, during these few days when you were cultivating, many things happened in the Chu country." Qin Yao pulled Qin Wentian to the side and sat down, as she recounted everything to Qin Wentian. After hearing Qin Yao's words, Qin Wentian's heart shuddered as he fell silent. Seems like Grandpa Qin had long since prepared for this. Qin Wentian sighed. For the past year, he had been working hard, wanting to rescue his father and Grandpa Qin. But in reality, there was no need for him to act. Qin Wu and Qin Chuan would be fine. "Wentian, I have no idea about this matter. Your grandpa hid it from me," Qin Chuan stated. "The struggle for power, that's how it is. If ancestor Qin Wu was harmed by the Emperor of Chu, and Grandpa Qin didn't do anything, the Qin clan could only be trampled on by others. This is what a man of character should do." Qin Wentian murmured. "I'm afraid there's something fishy about the death of ancestor. If not, based on Grandpa Qin's strength, there's no way he would be able to cause so many people to rebel. Only ancestor Qin would have such prestige," Qin Chuan stated. As long as one lives in this world, it's best to live with a clear conscience. How can we allow ourselves to be played by others?" A smile appeared on Qin Wentian's face. The royal clan of Chu had never been a good bunch. Yes, if the Qin clan didn't rebel, they would only be waiting for death. Qin Chuan stood up, as he heroically stated. He didn't place much importance on the loyalty of the Qin clan. Leaving aside how Qin Wu died, just the fact that the Emperor of Chu suppressed the Qin clan and forced them to move out of Sky Harmony City was already enough. If they rebelled, so be it. At this moment, the sound of footsteps drifted over from the courtyard. Qin Wentian and the rest turned their gazes over, only to see Fatty Fan Lu walking over. Upon seeing Qin Wentian, he couldn't help but feel joy as he stated, "Boss, you've finally completed your cultivation." Today, Chu Tianjiao brought a group of people to pay a visit to the Emperor's Star Academy, and even threatened to bring Sister Qin Yao away. That trash is truly too arrogant. What bullshit visit, he's here to provoke us. What a joke. Who is Sister Qin Yao to them? How can they bring her away just because they want to? And they even used this as an excuse to pay a visit to the Emperor's Star Academy. Qin Wentian was enraged. Leaving aside the fact that the Crown Prince of Snowcloud had betrayed Qin Yao, even if he didn't betray her, so what if Qin Yao didn't agree to be together with him? Could it be that just because he was the Crown Prince of Snowcloud, he had to force himself on her? Wasn't Xiao LV placing his position a little too high? I think so too. How arrogant. Let's hope the Emperor's Star Academy would be able to suppress their arrogance a little. Boss, let's go take a look together. Fan Lu said to Qin Wentian. Right. Qin Wentian nodded his head. I'll go as well. Qin Yao stepped forward and pulled on Qin Wentian's hand. Qin Wentian looked at Qin Yao as he laughed, fine. What does this Crown Prince of Snowcloud count for? Is he even worthy of my sister? How dare he be so arrogant? Yes, in the future, my younger brother would definitely be more outstanding compared to this Crown Prince of Snowcloud. Qin Yao's smile was filled with hints of mischievousness. Qin Chuan, seeing how close the relationship between the siblings was, had a gratified expression on his face. In his entire life, the things he was most satisfied with were these two children of his. Although Qin Wentian was only his foster son, Qin Wentian's position in his heart was in no way inferior to Qin Yao's. Qin Wentian was like a son to him. The news of Chu Tianjiao bringing the newly merged Royal Academy to pay a visit was already known to everyone. Naturally, the Emperor's Star Academy wouldn't obstruct them and opened the gates to welcome them. This was a provocation, and they could only accept it. In the central arena of the Emperor's Star Academy, there were already many people gathered. Many students were discussing amongst themselves. Today, they saw many outstanding Yuanfu seniors of the Emperor's Star Academy. Normally, these Yuanfu seniors would rarely appear in the academy, but at this moment, many of them were here. Evidently, the newly merged Royal Academy had given the Emperor's Star Academy an immense amount of pressure. From afar, a group of silhouettes walked over. These silhouettes were all youths around 20 years of age, each of them exuding an extraordinary aura. Those who knew the inside story understood that this time around, not only did the newly merged Royal Academy come, there were also a few geniuses from Snowcloud as well as the silhouettes of the 9 mystical palace. This gave the Emperor's Star Academy an immense amount of pressure. At this moment, old Gu, who was seated in the spectator stands, furrowed his brows as he stared at the approaching silhouettes. This time around, the situation didn't seem too good. With such a lineup, it would be extremely difficult for the Emperor's Star Academy to deal with them. Wentian, you're here. At this moment, old Gu noticed that Qin Wentian was walking over, and he couldn't help but smile. Qin Wentian could be said to be the most outstanding student he had seen ever since he joined the Emperor's Star Academy. Naturally, he was fond of Qin Wentian. Old Gu. Qin Wentian walked to his side, before turning his gaze to Mustang and bowing, "Teacher. Come sit beside me." Old Gu smiled, intentionally giving up a seat for Qin Wentian, causing those below to feel a wave of envy. Currently, Qin Wentian's status in the academy had already exceeded that of an elder. Back then, when he was assassinated, the entire academy was in a state of panic, and in the end, Qin Wentian even killed Jiang Zhen on the spot. In that case, Wentian shall be impudent. Qin Wentian humbly replied, as he sat beside old Gu. I'm really waiting to see when you can be impudent. Old Gu stroked his beard, as he looked at Qin Wentian and laughed, that granddaughter of mine is extremely mischievous nowadays. When will you be able to tame her for me? Eh? Qin Wentian froze, as he blinked his eyes. Why? Are you unwilling? Old Gu put on a straight face, pretending to be angry. No. Qin Wentian hurriedly replied. Ha, that means you have such thoughts. I'll tell my granddaughter about it another day. Old Gu hurriedly spoke, causing Qin Wentian's countenance to stiffen. After which, a bitter smile appeared on his face, as he had fallen into the trap of Old Gu. Old Gu, you are really... Qin Wentian was somewhat speechless. What's wrong with that? In my opinion, Wentian, you and Miss Mo are quite compatible. Qin Yao, who was standing at the side, laughed. Right, even your elder sister has said so. Old man Gu also smiled happily, and his furrowed brows also relaxed. At his age, seeing that the younger generation was young and talented, if they could find a good home, that would be the happiest thing for him. Chu Tianjiao of the Royal Academy pays his respects to the elders of the Emperor Star Academy. At this moment, a voice drifted over, instantly ruining old Gu's mood. His countenance turned cold as he turned his gaze over, only to see Chu Tianjiao bringing a group of people over to the spectator stand. Although these people came with ill intentions, they didn't forget their etiquette. They all bowed in the direction of the Emperor Star Academy, showing their respect to the elders. May I know what identity the third prince is using to come to the Emperor Star Academy? Old Gu stared at Chu Tianjiao as he asked in a clear voice. The Crown Prince of Snowcloud, Xiao LVL, came to the Emperor Star Academy to escort Qin Yao back to her country. However, he was obstructed time and time again. As the host, I have no choice but to pay a visit. I would like to plead with the elders not to interfere in this matter, as it would affect the friendship between the Chu and Snowcloud countries. Not only that, the words of a lowly person like Chu are not enough to influence the decisions of the elders. Chu Tianjiao politely replied, not letting out a single drop of water. He came here in the name of the third prince, as well as in the name of the Royal Academy. Chapter 160. Old Gu stared at Chu Tianjiao as he laughed. I don't quite understand your highness's words. Crown Prince Xiao LVL wants to bring Qin Yao back to Chu. Does Qin Yao agree to this? How can the engagement of the Crown Prince of Snowcloud be a joke? Even if Qin Yao has some objections, she has to return to Snowcloud first. Chu Tianjiao calmly replied. You mean that even if Qin Yao doesn't agree, Snowcloud will still forcefully bring her back as a concubine? Not only that, Chu is willing to be an accomplice. Old Gu countered, this old man has lived for so many years, but this is the first time I've heard such a despicable act spoken of in such a manner. What's even more unbelievable is that it came from the mouth of the Crown Prince of Chu. Could it be that the royal clan of Chu has already fallen to such a state? Old man Gu's words were sharp, especially the last sentence, as though he was implying something. Currently, the royal clan of Chu was at the heart of the storm, and the rumors of Qin Wu being sentenced to death were still spreading. Yet, old man Gu had pinned such a big hat on Chu Tianjiao, causing people to sigh in admiration. Even Chu Tianjiao didn't expect old Gu's words to be so sharp. A cold glint of light flashed in his eyes. Old Gu's words, how can a person be untrustworthy? Marriage is a joke. Coming from the mouth of an honorary elder of the Emperor Star Academy, I, Chu, am truly ashamed. How ridiculous, when did I ever have a marriage engagement with Xiao LVL? Seeing how Chu Tianjiao kept mentioning the marriage agreement, Qin Yao couldn't help but be enraged. I only agreed to interact with Xiao LVL, and we don't even have any substantial relationship. Yet you're saying that I've already become his accessory? Old Gu coldly snorted, Chu Tianjiao, did you hear that clearly? The important point is that the people of Snowcloud already know about the marriage between Qin Yao and Crown Prince Xiao LVL. That's enough. What a load of nonsense. Qin Wendian couldn't help but shout, according to the logic of the third prince, if I start a rumor today, saying that the Princess of Chu has a marriage engagement with me, Qin Wendian, wouldn't the Princess of Chu have to marry me the next day? Impudent. Who do you think you are? How can you be worthy of the imperial princess? Sikong Mingyue's gaze was as sharp as a sword as he stared straight at Qin Wendian. What kind of status does the crown prince, Xiao Lu, have? Since the news of Qin Yao and the crown prince's relationship is already known by everyone, how could she not return to Snowcloud? Hee, that's what you think. In my eyes, be it the Princess of Chu or the Crown Prince of Snowcloud, what do they count as? How can they be compared to my elder sister? Qin Wendian looked at Sikong Mingyue as he sneered, as for you, a loser, you still dare to act so arrogantly? As he spoke, a look of disdain flickered in Qin Wendian's eyes. Qin Wendian had seen many memories from the astral being. He had seen the dream of spring and autumn. He had also received the inheritance of the Azure Emperor and had gone to the spirit beast testing grounds to temper himself. How could his horizons be limited to Chu and Snowcloud? The world outside was extremely vast, and the crown princes of Chu and Snowcloud didn't count for anything. In the entire 9 continents, they were nothing more than ordinary commoners. His view of the so-called geniuses had also changed. Sikong Mingyue was one of the most talented geniuses in the entire Snowcloud country, but even so, he was still weaker than Luo Qianqiu. However, when compared to the geniuses in the spirit beast testing grounds, Luo Qianqiu could only be considered ordinary. In this way, he would be able to remind himself not to belittle himself, but also not to get carried away, thinking that he was a genius. He, Qin Wendian, was only a member of this boundless continent. He didn't have the qualifications to look down on others, but he also didn't need to look up to others. He could only take one step at a time, relying on his will and determination to advance steadily. Sikong Mingyue was humiliated by Qin Wendian in public. His sword intent gushed forth as he dashed towards Qin Wendian as he roared in rage, "Let's fight again." "You are not worthy." Qin Wendian calmly stared at Sikong Mingyue, his eyes filled with disdain. That arrogant look in his eyes caused the killing intent radiating from Sikong Mingyue to grow even more intense. Only then did Sikong Mingyue's aura calm down. However, Chu Tianjiao continued, "There's no point in talking too much. Today, the Royal Academy is paying a visit to the Emperor Star Academy. I have 5 Yuanfu cultivators on my side, and they wish to seek guidance from the outstanding students of the Emperor Star Academy. Why don't I see 5 from the Royal Academy?" Old Gu glanced at the other party. Yi Wuk, first level of Yuanfu, invites Chiu Mo of the Emperor Star Academy. Yi Wuk replied. He was ranked number 5 among the 10 prodigies, while Chiu Mo was ranked number 4. Wang Teng, second level of Yuanfu, invites the leader of the Green Cloud Association, Ling Hua of the Emperor Star Academy. A silhouette stepped out, exuding a powerful aura. First Sword, second level of Yuanfu, invites the honorary elder of the Emperor Star Academy, Rain. Wu Chong, second level of Yuanfu, invites the leader of the Azura Association, Duidao. Xiao Lan, third level of Yuanfu, invites the leader of the Heavenly Demon Association, Shuelengfeng. Beside Chu Tianjiao, the 5 silhouettes all spoke. In an instant, an intense aura gushed forth, filled with an intense battle intent. The 5 of them directly issued a challenge. Not only that, the people they invited were all at the same cultivation level as the 5 of them. Not only that, they were all extremely famous in the Emperor Star Academy. 3 of them were the leaders of the 3 student associations, 1 was a member of the 10 prodigies, and the last was an honorary elder. Since when did First Sword become a member of your Royal Academy? And why haven't I heard of Xiao Lan and Wang Ting before? Old Gu's countenance turned sharp. The Royal Academy and the Godly General Martial Palace have just merged, so Old Gu naturally isn't familiar with some of them. As for First Sword, the matter today concerns the entire Snowcloud country. It's just that because of the merger of the two academies, I don't wish to bully the Emperor Star Academy. Hence, Crown Prince Xiao LVL and I will not participate in the battle. Chu Tianjiao slowly spoke, causing the pupils of the crowd to narrow. What an arrogant tone. Indeed, Chu Tianjiao was ranked number 2 among the 10 prodigies. In addition, Xiao LVL was the leader of the duo prides of Snowcloud country. There was no need to doubt the strength of the two of them. If Chu Tianjiao and Xiao LVL were to participate, the Emperor's Star Academy would be in even more trouble. However, the two of them chose not to participate. This was a battle between Yuanfu realm cultivators. Regardless of the Emperor's Star Academy or the Royal Academy, Yuanfu realm cultivators were the backbone of the academy. People at this level were the true elites of the Emperor's Star Academy. From a certain perspective, the scale of this battle didn't lose out to the Jun Lin banquet. The 5 participants were all extraordinary characters. Yi Wuk, a Yuanfu realm cultivator of the 10 prodigies. First Sword, the leader of the 3 swords of Snowcloud country. Wu Chong, a genius disciple of the godly General Martial Palace. As for Wang Teng and Xiao Lan, they weren't simple characters either. Especially Xiao Lan, who was at the 3rd level of Yuanfu, challenging the leader of the Heavenly Demon Association. Will the Emperor's Star Academy accept the challenge? Chu Tianjiao's voice boomed out, reverberating in the air above the Emperor's Star Academy. They had already investigated the cultivation bases of the geniuses of the Emperor's Star Academy. From the looks of it, the Emperor's Star Academy didn't have any intentions of taking advantage of the Emperor's Star Academy. The gazes of the students of the Emperor's Star Academy all turned to the elders in the spectator stands. Under such circumstances, how could they reject? Are all of you willing to accept the challenge? Old Gu didn't make the decision for the geniuses of the Emperor's Star Academy. He knew that the cultivation bases of the 5 participants were exactly the same as their opponents. Not only that, they were all from the Emperor's Star Academy. Fight! Only to see Chiao Mo stepping out, landing on the platform. His sharp eyes stared at Yi Wuk. His ranking was higher than Yi Wuk's, there was no reason for him to refuse. Yi Wuk, you're ranked within the top 5 of the 10 prodigies. At the very least, your position is unshakable. Chiao Mo indifferently stated as he stared at Yi Wuk. Yi Wuk's countenance was calm as he stared at his opponent. After which, he released his 3rd astral soul, causing a resplendent golden red light to flash about. Golden astral soul, 4th heavenly layer. Chiao Mo's countenance stiffened when he saw this. Not only did Yi Wuk open an astral gate and condense his 3rd astral soul, he even condensed an astral soul from the 4th heavenly layer. This astral soul was in the form of a golden red sharp sword. As the light shone, the sharpness of the sword intent was bone-piercing. Bzzz, a terrifying sharpness erupted forth as Yi Wuk stepped out, instantly causing Chiao Mo to feel an immense pressure. Behind his back, a pair of silvery wings appeared, gleaming with a resplendent light. This was his 2nd astral soul, and after stepping into Yuanfu, even his wings seemed to have become real. After Wu Xiu stepped into Yuanfu, his arterial pathways transformed into a vortex, and the astral energy in his body transformed into yuan energy droplets. Each droplet was condensed from a vast amount of astral energy. These yuan energy droplets, which contained a terrifying amount of energy, would appear in the Yuanfu within Wu Xiu's body. Not only that, the newly formed Yuanfu would also begin to nurture an astral nova. The amount of astral energy a Yuanfu cultivator possessed was far beyond what our arterial circulation realm cultivator could compare to. That was a qualitative change, a leap in strength. The vast amount of astral energy they possessed would allow them to use many different techniques. Even their astral souls would have a corporeal quality to them. When they gradually nurtured their astral novas and stepped into Heavenly Dipper, they would then possess a corporeal astral nova. Chi. Just when Chiao Mo was in a daze, Yi Wuk stepped out. In an instant, countless golden swords converged together, transforming into a gigantic heaven-punishing sword, slashing towards Chiyomo. Golden sword chi enveloped the surroundings, and the might of this attack was akin to a terrifying tempest. An astral soul from the fourth heavenly layer could even amplify his attacks. How terrifying was this? Chiyomo also released his own astral soul, but when faced against Yiwuk's attack, he discovered that all of his defenses would be broken apart. A deep sense of disappointment could be seen in his eyes. The position of the fourth prodigy was about to change hands. The attacks of the two collided together. With just a single strike, Chiyomo was blasted off the platform, causing the spectators to be stunned. Was the difference in strength between the fourth and fifth prodigies so great? Not only that, the fifth prodigy was even stronger. The first battle, the Emperor's Star Academy was defeated. Yiwuk cast his gaze in the direction of the Emperor's Star Academy's spectator stand, only to see him bowing as he stated, "I won this round by luck." After speaking, he slowly retreated, returning to his original position. However, when the sound of his voice drifted into the ears of the spectators, it was extremely ear-piercing. Chapter 161. How could Yiwuk's victory be due to luck? This battle was clearly a one-sided victory. Chiyomo, who was ranked number 4 among the 10 prodigies, wasn't too far off from Yiwuk in the past. But now, after Yiwuk condensed his third astral soul, Chiyomo was left in the dust. Yiwuk retreated from the platform, only to see First Sword slowly walking up as sword intent gushed forth from him. Although Yiwuk had also attacked with his sword earlier, he wasn't a pure sword cultivator. However, First Sword was different. From the aura he exuded, one could tell that he was an extremely powerful sword cultivator. The attacks of a sword cultivator would definitely be extremely sharp and powerful. Rain slowly walked onto the stage. She was dressed in white and had a youthful appearance. She was around 20 years of age and had many admirers in the academy. However, no one had been able to woo this outstanding beauty up until now. "Please enlighten me." First Sword bowed to Rain. Although these people came here to provoke them, their etiquette was impeccable, making it impossible for others to criticize them. "Please enlighten me." Rain returned the bow, her expression gentle and beautiful. It was hard to imagine that such a beautiful student would have such powerful combat prowess. First Sword stepped out, and in an instant, his sword-type astral soul blossomed with a resplendent radiance. A three-colored sword flashed in the air, incomparably resplendent, as though it wanted to blind the eyes of the spectators. 3-star astral souls, all in the form of swords. The gazes of the spectators froze. As expected of the leader of the 3 swords of Snowcloud, his dedication to the sword was extraordinary. A 3-colored sword-type astral soul could amplify the might of an innate technique. Rain also released her astral soul, causing a rain of stars to descend from the sky. 3rd astral soul, 4th heavenly layer. The spectators all had looks of astonishment on their faces as they stared at Rain's astral soul. Especially the students of the Emperor's Star Academy, they couldn't help but exclaim in admiration. Senior Rain is so powerful, and yet so low profile. Senior Rain is so much stronger compared to Chiyomo. Chiyomo's reputation is undeserved. Many people discussed in a low voice, their voices extremely ear-piercing to Chiyomo's ears. What was even more interesting was that Rain had chosen the Rain astral soul. With her as the center, a rain of stars began to descend. At the same time, a pair of pure white wings appeared on Rain's back. At this moment, Rain was akin to an angel, much more beautiful than when Yiwuke released his winged astral soul. So beautiful! Some young girls exclaimed. However, there were also people who were worried for Rain. With such a combination of astral souls, would Rain's attacks be strong? The first sword slowly walked out, the sword light tearing through everything. The tricolored sword transformed into 3 beams of sword light, descending from the sky and slashing towards Rain. However, Sumuyu's silhouette flickered unceasingly. The curtain of rain was still there, giving off a hazy feeling. When the three-colored sword light landed, her silhouette was still standing in the curtain of rain, not being hit at all. Her footsteps. Qin Wentian noticed that both of Rain's legs were shimmering with astral light. He had once listened to Rain's lecture before. His senior apprentice sister Rain had some unique insights, and it was precisely because of Rain's lecture that he was able to comprehend how to spit out sword light from her mouth, and how to launch palm strikes with her feet. Seeing how the first sword's ferocious attacks were unable to touch Rain, Qin Wentian faintly felt that Rain would be able to win this battle. And indeed, the first sword's attacks were extremely impatient. His attacks were like a raging tempest, pressuring Rain to the point where she couldn't even breathe. However, when he slashed out with his strongest attack, he discovered that he was wrong. Rain's body actually began to dissipate, and at the same time, another silhouette walked out from the curtain of rain. Is this an illusion-type astral soul? The crowd was filled with disbelief when they saw Rain defeating the first sword with a single strike. Although it seemed that the first sword had the upper hand, he didn't pose a threat to Rain at all. Just a fluke. Rain retreated a few steps as she politely replied. Her words were the same as Yi Wux's, but it was extremely satisfying. Weren't these people very arrogant? Didn't they still lose in the end? Wang Teng leapt up the platform as a terrifying aura gushed forth from him. For this battle, his opponent was none other than the leader of the Green Cloud Association, Ling Hua. Qin Wentian's impression of Ling Hua was still pretty good. Back then, if it wasn't for Ling Hua's appearance, he would have already killed Luo Qianqiu. And if he really did kill Luo Qianqiu, based on the strength of the 9 mystical palace, even the Emperor's Star Academy wouldn't be able to protect him. However, when he saw Wang Teng's attacks, Qin Wentian knew that Ling Hua was going to lose this battle. Not only Qin Wentian felt this way, when the spectators saw the two of them clashing, they were all shocked by Wang Teng's combat prowess. Wang Teng was akin to a primordial beast, tyrannical and tyrannical, suppressing everything in its path. Finally, Ling Hua was unable to withstand Wang Teng's attacks and was defeated. This Wang Teng must be a trump card arranged by Chu Tianjiao. He will definitely win. Qin Wentian stared at Chu Tianjiao. That calm countenance of his was filled with confidence. Since he came today, he wouldn't leave in defeat. The fourth battle, Wu Chong against the leader of the Azura Alliance, Dui Dao. Luo Qianqiu was also a member of the Azura Alliance when he was still in the Emperor's Star Academy. However, other than those from the Knights Association, the other members of the Emperor's Star Academy didn't care about identity or status. The Azura Alliance emphasized on killing and tempering themselves, raising their combat prowess in times of crisis. But in such a situation, they would undoubtedly stand on the side of the Emperor's Star Academy. Wu Chong was a famous figure in the godly General Martial Palace. His 3 beast-type astral souls granted him terrifying combat prowess. However, Dui Dao wasn't any weaker as well. His attacks were unconventional, and each and every one of them was fatal. He simply didn't care about his life, and was extremely ruthless. However, Wu Chang's ruthlessness didn't lose out to Dui Dao's. The godly General Martial Palace was located in the dark forest, and the people there were all talents nurtured by the military. Naturally, they had to be ruthless. They used the dark forest as a training ground, and the tempering of their disciples was extremely crazy, not losing out to the cruelty of the Azura Alliance. Seeing how the two of them were still able to rely on their tyrannical willpower to continue fighting despite suffering numerous attacks, many in the spectators couldn't help but admire them. Finally, Wu Chong howled in rage. Relying on the power of his beast-type astral souls, he finally managed to suppress Dui Dao, blasting him off the platform, seizing the victory of the fourth battle. In this case, out of the 5 battles, the Royal Academy had already won 3. Their challenges had achieved glorious results. From now onwards, the people of the royal capital would say that the current Royal Academy could only be stronger than the Emperor's Star Academy. This time around, other than the matter regarding Shao LVL, the Royal Academy also wanted to create momentum. Since the Royal Academy wanted to make a move against the Emperor's Star Academy, it was naturally impossible for them to start a war with the Emperor's Star Academy. they could only slowly weaken the Emperor's Star Academy. Hence, the provocation this time around was precisely to create momentum. Wanting to destroy the Emperor's Star Academy wasn't something that could be done in a day or two. Do we still need to proceed with the last battle? Chu Tianjiao cast his gaze onto the spectator stands as he calmly asked. His voice was extremely unpleasant to the ears of those from the Emperor's Star Academy. Was there still a need to proceed with the last battle? Out of the 5 battles, they had already won 3. From a certain perspective, they were already victorious. Naturally. Old Gu's countenance was extremely unsightly to behold. After which, the leader of the Heavenly Demon Alliance, Zhou Lengfeng, walked up the platform. Zhou Lengfeng was an expert at the 3rd level of Yuanfu. Among the students of the Emperor's Star Academy, those who surpassed this level would have already left the academy. From a certain perspective, Zhou Lengfeng represented the pinnacle of strength among the students of the Emperor's Star Academy. If one wanted to be stronger, they would have to leave Chu and pursue a higher level of cultivation. Strictly speaking, this battle of Zhou Lengfeng's was no longer a battle for victory, but a battle to protect the glory of the Emperor's Star Academy. Xiao Lan, this young man who had never appeared in the sights of the royal capital before, walked up the platform. He inclined his head and stared at Zhou Lengfeng. That gaze of his gave off an extremely uncomfortable feeling, even sharper than the edge of a blade. You are not my opponent. Scram. Xiao Lan calmly spat out, his words causing a cold glint of light to flicker in Zhou Lengfeng's eyes. He was the leader of the Heavenly Demon Alliance, and his status in the Emperor's Star Academy was extraordinary. The Heavenly Demon Alliance was the first alliance to be established in the Emperor's Star Academy, and had a symbolic meaning. But now, they were being humiliated. Not only that, out of the 5 that Chu Tianjiao brought, the first 4 were extremely courteous, regardless of their strength. However, the last one was the complete opposite. Savage, arrogant, as though he had the intention to humiliate the Emperor's Star Academy. We will only know after we battle. Zhou Lengfeng's voice was cold, as he retorted. Bzzz. A raging wind gusted by, as Xiao Lan's silhouette abruptly moved. His entire person transformed into an illusory beam of light as he stared at Zhou Lengfeng. In that instant, Zhou Lengfeng felt as though he was in a miraculous realm, and even if he wanted to raise his hands to resist, it was extremely difficult. In the direction of the Emperor's Star Academy's platform, someone stood up with an expression of shock on his face. Boom! A sound rang out, as the entire space turned deathly silent. Zhou Lengfeng's chest was split open, as blood flowed unceasingly. Scram! Xiao Lan's palms blasted out, as a white light flashed, blasting Zhou Lengfeng off the platform. Old Gu's silhouette flickered as he appeared in front of Zhou Lengfeng, catching him as he asked, "Are you all right?" "Teacher, I've disappointed you." Zhou Lengfeng stared at Old Gu, as he apologized. So it turned out that the leader of the Heavenly Demon Association, Zhou Lengfeng, was the disciple of the honorary elder, Old Gu. So what if you're defeated? Don't worry about it. Old Gu consoled, but his eyes were filled with sharpness. Earlier, when Xiao Lan attacked, he felt a pressure on a spiritual level. Such a person was truly terrifying. In the Royal Academy, there was no such person as Xiao Lan. The Emperor's Star Academy is merely a so-so. Xiao Lan coldly spoke, as a hint of evil could be heard in his voice. In such a situation, no one could refute his words. 5 battles, 4 defeats. Today, Chu Tianjiao's domineering provocation was indeed prepared. If it wasn't for Rain's victory, they would have been in an even more miserable state. But even so, the ending was still extremely unsightly. Out of the 4 alliances of the Emperor's Star Academy, 3 of the alliance leaders were all defeated. Such a crushing defeat would definitely have a great impact on the reputation of the Emperor's Star Academy. Evidently, Chu Tianjiao's goal had been achieved. Chapter 162. Chu Tianjiao stood up. Although he had achieved a great victory, there was no trace of complacency on his face. On the contrary, he bowed to the elders of the Emperor's Star Academy. Elders, do you have anything to say? Old Gu placed Shui Lungfeng down and glanced at Chu Tianjiao. This person was neither arrogant nor rash, and his talent was extraordinary. Sadly, his ambitions were too great. He wanted to pacify the entire Chu country, allowing the royal clan to cover the skies with one hand. Without the Emperor's Star Academy, without the Qin clan, only the royal clan reigns supreme. Victory and defeat are nothing out of the ordinary. The students of the Emperor's Star Academy must remember today's battle and cultivate even harder in the future. Regardless of what old Gu was thinking in his heart, he couldn't let Chu Tianjiao laugh at him on the surface. After all, although Chu Tianjiao's words were beautiful, who didn't know of his wild ambitions? Chu Tianjiao admires Senior's breadth of mind. However, I still have to bring up the matter of Qin Yao. I hope that Senior can be magnanimous enough to allow Miss Qin Yao to accompany the Crown Prince of Snowcloud back to Chu Tianjiao. Chu Tianjiao was still as polite as before, neither servile nor overbearing. You can just ask for Qin Yao's opinion on this matter. How can I make a decision for her? Old Gu unhappily replied. As long as the elders of the Emperor's Star Academy don't obstruct us juniors, it's fine. Chu Tianjiao continued. So you want to use force? A cold light flickered in old Gu's eyes. I don't dare to. This is originally a matter between juniors. It's best for us to handle it ourselves. Of course, if the Emperor's Star Academy uses numbers to bully us, or if the elders obstruct us, I have nothing to say. Chu Tianjiao had pinned the blame on the Emperor's Star Academy, causing the spectators to understand his intentions. Earlier, after he defeated the Emperor's Star Academy, he intentionally provoked them. Didn't this mean that the Emperor's Star Academy couldn't obstruct them from bringing Qin Yao away? If not, it would mean that the Emperor's Star Academy was useless. The logic of the third prince really makes one not know whether to laugh or cry. Old Gu mocked. According to what you mean, if you win, you can just snatch Qin Yao away. If the Emperor's Star Academy doesn't interfere, it would be considered as bullying? What kind of place do you think the Emperor's Star Academy is? Since Senior understands it this way, I, Chu Tianjiao, have nothing more to say. If the Emperor's Star Academy insists on this, I can only leave. However, the reputation of the Emperor's Star Academy wouldn't be too good to hear. Didn't the Royal Academy just win a few battles that were arranged beforehand? Why do I feel as though the Royal Academy is standing above the Emperor's Star Academy? Qin Wentian couldn't bear to see this. Although Chu Tianjiao appeared humble, he was actually extremely domineering and domineering. The Emperor's Star Academy's preparations weren't sufficient, but you guys managed to find a few unknown experts from God knows where, and you call this victory? Qin of Academy. The Academy was, of the Qin. Academy of Academy, Emperor of the Academy of Tianov Academy, of the Academy, Tian Qin Academy of the Academy, of Wu of. 5 days later, the Emperor's Star Academy can bring 5 people to pay a visit to the Royal Academy. The arterial circulation realm doesn't have a specific cultivation level, and the Emperor's Star Academy can choose their disciples now. My Emperor's Star Academy can guarantee that the Royal Academy will definitely recognize these 5 people. On the contrary, the majority of the martial academies in the royal capital are focused on guiding their disciples in their cultivation. Most of them are at the arterial circulation realm, and because of this, the competition at the arterial circulation realm is more suitable. 5 days from now, the Emperor's Star Academy can bring 5 people to pay a visit to the Royal Academy. The arterial circulation realm doesn't have a specific cultivation level, and the Royal Academy can choose their disciples now. My Emperor's Star Academy can guarantee that these 5 people are definitely not from outside, and the Royal Academy will definitely recognize them. Qin Wentian was undoubtedly hinting that his Emperor's Star Academy wouldn't be the same as them, inviting unknown experts to battle. Old Gu glanced at Qin Wentian as he laughed. Today's visit to the Royal Academy was to slap the Emperor Star Academy's face. Qin Wentian's suggestion wasn't bad, but the main point was to ensure victory. After all, after the merger of the godly General Martial Palace and the Royal Academy, there would be many outstanding disciples. However, their advantage was none other than Qin Wentian. This suggestion isn't bad. Old Gu continued, most of the Yuanfu realm disciples have already graduated, so there's no need to compete. But as for the arterial circulation realm disciples, there should still be students from both academies. Regarding Qin Yao, the Emperor Star Academy has yet to express their stance. Qin Yao is already a student of my Emperor Star Academy. If the third prince dares to say that if our Emperor Star Academy wins 5 days later, we can snatch any beautiful female disciple from the Royal Academy, and the Royal Academy won't interfere, I have nothing to say. Old Gu coldly laughed. Based on Chu Tianjiao's status, it was impossible for him to make such a ridiculous decision. Chu Tianjiao fell silent. He knew that it was impossible for him to bring Qin Yao away today. Naturally, he already knew that it was impossible, but he still had to put up a front. Not only that, they had indeed embarrassed the Emperor Star Academy, and the result of this battle would soon spread throughout the royal capital, affecting the enrollment of new students. But what Chu Tianjiao didn't expect was that Qin Wentian actually wanted to return the favor to the Royal Academy. Farewell. Chu Tianjiao bowed once more, as he turned and departed. Those beside him followed suit, departing the Royal Academy. 5 days later, do you accept the challenge? Qin Wentian stared at the back of Chu Tianjiao as he asked. Anytime. Chu Tianjiao's voice drifted over, causing old Gu's countenance to turn heavy. He turned to Qin Wentian beside him. Wentian, with the merger of the two great academies, in addition to the fact that they will seek help from other experts, things are going to be a little troublesome. Today, they are the guests, and the rules are set by them. 5 days later, we will be the guests, and the rules will be set by us. Why must we fight separately? Qin Wentian's eyes flickered with a sharp glint, causing old Gu's countenance to stiffen. After which, he patted Qin Wentian on his shoulders. The pressure on Qin Wentian's shoulders was immense. The crowd from the Emperor Star Academy gradually dispersed. Just as Chu Tianjiao had predicted, the result of the battle quickly spread throughout the royal capital. After the merger of the Royal Academy and the godly General Martial Palace, the limelight was unrivaled, suppressing even the Emperor Star Academy, becoming the #1 academy in the royal capital. This caused many outstanding youths to waver. Initially, many of them had planned to enroll in the Emperor Star Academy for the entrance examination. Could it be that they had changed their minds? However, another piece of news circulated out. The Emperor Star Academy wasn't satisfied with their defeat, and would pay a visit to the Royal Academy 5 days later. And the person in the lead was none other than the top ranker of the Junlin banquet, Qin Wentian. With Qin Wentian's strength, it was naturally hard for him to meet a worthy opponent at the arterial circulation realm. However, what about the others? Would they have a chance of victory? Currently, Qin Wentian was in closed-door seclusion. After Francis received his letter, he followed Qin Wentian's instructions and handed the divine inscription painting over to the divine weapon pavilion. With the fastest speed, the divine weapon pavilion paid a hefty price to gather all the items that Qin Wentian needed and sent them over to Qin Wentian. These items included demonic cores, yuan meteor stones that contained the astral energy of the demonic constellations, as well as other resources that contained the essence of demonic beasts. Just the items sent over by the divine weapon pavilion were definitely priceless. However, this was only the first level of the fiend transformation art that Qin Wentian wanted to cultivate. Not only that, it wasn't sufficient for him to reach the perfection boundary of the first level. In the future, he would need even more resources. As for the second level of the fiend transformation art, not only did he need resources, he also needed to condense a powerful astral soul from a demonic beast. However, that was something that would happen after Qin Wentian stepped into Yuanfu and condensed his third astral soul. The current him only wanted to cultivate the first level of the fiend transformation art, the demonic body transformation art. Qin Wentian did his best to cultivate, completely ignoring the happenings in the outside world. In the royal capital of Chu, other than the Sky Transport Network and Heaven's Wonder, there was still the Heavenly Treasures Network. The Sky Transport Network was the largest transportation network in the Chu country, Heaven's Wonder was the largest casino, and the Heavenly Treasures Network was the largest trading center for treasures. This was somewhat similar to the Divine Weapon Pavilion, but there were also some differences. The main business of the Divine Weapon Pavilion was the sale of divine weapons, while the Heavenly Treasures Network focused more on the transactions of rare and precious treasures. Hence, the Heavenly Treasures Network was also the largest auction house in the Chu country. The crystal auction building of the Heavenly Treasures Network was split into 3 levels, and was constructed entirely from crystals. The entire building was shimmering with a resplendent light, exuding a sense of extravagance and nobility. Today, regardless of whether it was the first, second, or third level of the crystal auction building, they were all filled to the brim. This was because the Heavenly Treasures Network had already released the news that an extremely valuable treasure would be auctioned today. This undoubtedly stirred the curiosity of many. There was no need to doubt the value of a treasure that could be auctioned in the crystal auction building. Hence, many nobles came today. Zui Yin, Murin, Orkan, Yizhan and Lu Yan, Autumn Snow and her friends came as well. They all wanted to see what the Heavenly Treasures Network was going to auction. On the first level of the crystal auction building, within a crystal lotus, a beautiful lady clad in translucent robes stood there. Her beauty was breathtaking, causing people to sigh in admiration. The lotus slowly rose up into the air, and the lady had a charming smile on her face. She held a painting in her hands as she spoke to the crowd. The treasure being auctioned today was created by one of the most outstanding geniuses in the history of the Emperor Star Academy in the Chu country. In fact, I feel that the word "one of" should be removed from its name. As the sound of her voice faded, many in the crowd were stunned. The most outstanding genius in the history of the Emperor Star Academy? What a tantalizing question. When he was 16 years old, he had yet to step onto the path of cultivation. At that time, his marriage engagement was broken off and he was humiliated. However, he didn't give up. On the contrary, the first astral soul he awakened originated from the 3rd heavenly layer, and his second astral soul originated from the 4th heavenly layer. In a short span of a year, he stepped into the peak of the arterial circulation realm. Not only that, he created a miracle, becoming the champion of the Junlin banquet, defeating Luo Qianqiu and Sikong Mingyue. The hearts of the crowd trembled as they guessed who she was talking about. Autumn Snow's countenance turned pale. Wasn't the marriage engagement broken off and humiliated? Wasn't this referring to her? At this moment, she only felt a burning sensation on her face. Not only that, he is also the most outstanding genius in the Chu country. At the age of 17, he was able to inscribe a divine imprint that even Heavenly Dipper sovereigns were in awe. That was a 3rd-level divine imprint, a human-shaped painting that had never appeared before in the history of the Chu country. The young lady smiled as she spoke. Only now did they realize that Qin Wentian was truly outstanding. Autumn Snow was even thinking in her heart that if that incident didn't happen back then, that naive young man would still be together with her right now. Back then, for that painting, even the Heavenly Dipper sovereigns, Senior Qin Wentian, gave it his all and even promised Muro a favor. Today, this is the second painting created by Grandmaster Qin Wentian, a unique masterpiece that surpasses the previous one. Maybe, it would be highly regarded by Heavenly Dipper sovereigns. The young lady smiled as she swept her gaze across the crowd. With just a few sentences, the atmosphere was pushed to the peak, causing the blood of many in the crowd to boil. Just the fact that even Heavenly Dipper's sovereigns wanted this painting was sufficient to drive many people crazy, not to mention the value of the painting itself. Seeing the performance of the young lady, a smile appeared on Liuyan's face. Seems like her decision to send the painting to the Heavenly Treasures Tower for auction was the correct one. Chapter 163. Within the translucent crystal lotus, the water maiden, clad in a translucent crystal cloak, had exceedingly good skin. It was as though she had fused into the painting, causing the hearts of many males to pound with excitement. However, when she unfurled the painting in her hands, the gazes of the crowd instantly shifted away, as they stared at the divine inscription painting. It was still the same human-shaped painting, as though it had a mind of its own. The ancient halberd exuded an aura that caused the spectators to be immersed within, as though they had entered a miraculous state. Yet another revolutionary creation. Seems like Qin Wentian is truly a heaven-defying genius. The first painting might have been obtained by chance, but this second painting clearly has the same aura as the first painting, and was created by the same person. Not only that, the aura contained within this painting is even more intense. A voice drifted out from a crystal booth. The young lady inclined her head, as she smiled. President Zhou Yin has a good eye. I believe that after missing out on the first painting, you won't miss out on the second one. Vice President Zhou Yin of the Star River Association. The crowd was shocked, as the atmosphere grew increasingly lively. Finally, the auction officially began, and very quickly, the price of this painting was raised to an extremely terrifying level. On the first level, in a certain seat, a young lady stared at the pale-faced Autumn Snow as she asked, Autumn Snow, did you really break off the engagement with Qin Wentian back then? Autumn Snow's countenance was extremely unsightly. Based on Qin Wentian's current status, it was no longer something she could compare to, even if Qin Wentian had a grudge with the royal clan. But now, the Chu country had already rebelled, and it was still unknown who would emerge victorious. If the rebels won, Qin Wentian's status would be equivalent to the current Chu Tianjiao's. Because now, everyone knew that the Qin clan was the target of the rebels, and this was also the banner of their rebellion. Lu Yan, who was seated in the second-level booth with Yi Zhan, was also feeling complicated in her heart. Back then, Yi Zhan had told her that Qin Wentian would never be on the same level as her. But now, his words had come true. How many people in the royal capital knew of Yi Zhan? But who didn't know of Qin Wentian? Because of Qin Wentian's matter, Mu Qing and Zhou Yin were increasingly at odds. Zhou Yin seemed to dislike him. Mu Qing was well aware of this and secretly cursed the old man. Since Mu Qing dared to hate him because of a brat, don't blame him for being cruel and merciless. Of course, Mu Qing would not show it. His face was always full of smiles. Finally, the divine inscription painting was purchased by Zhou Yin with a sky-high price. He was the vice president of the Star River Association, and was proficient in divine inscriptions as well as weaponsmithing. With his wealth, it wouldn't be a problem for him to purchase this painting. Putting one of Qin Wentian's paintings up for auction here had caused a great stir. Many great figures had participated in the auction. Thinking of this, Autumn Snow dejectedly walked out of the Heavenly Treasures Pavilion. If she said that she had no regrets, it would be a lie. After all, Qin Wentian had never let her down. It had always been her and Bai Qingsong who were blinded by greed. More importantly, they weren't doing so well now. If not, they wouldn't have thought so much about it. Another reason was that the disparity between the two of them was simply too great. So great that she couldn't even feel the jealousy she had felt in the past. Even now, I'm afraid he still hates me and the Bai clan to the bone. Autumn Snow laughed self-mockingly. Time and experience were truly wondrous things. In just a short span of a year, a person's state of mind had actually undergone such a huge change. This was something that the Autumn Snow of the past would never have dreamt of. As for Qin Wentian, he didn't know what was happening here, nor did he know how the auction was conducted. Since the Divine Weapon Pavilion had already handled this matter, he completely let it go. In any case, the Divine Weapon Pavilion wouldn't mistreat him. He only needed to focus on his cultivation. Only with strength would he have status, resources, and authority. For the sake of cultivating the fiend transformation art, Qin Wentian could be said to be self-mutilating. These few days, he cultivated like a madman, using a method that he had never used before. However, the results he obtained were astonishing. His physique grew stronger and stronger, and his life force grew stronger and stronger. Every breath he took was filled with vitality. In the blink of an eye, 5 days passed. Currently, at the entrance of the royal capital, there were already tens of thousands of youths gathered here. These were all people who came to the royal capital to register for the entrance examination of the martial academies. The youths of the various major cities of Chu rushed to the royal capital, adding even more color to the atmosphere, causing the atmosphere to be filled with vitality. Every year at this time, the royal capital would always be bustling with activity. Regardless of the internal strife in Chu, it wouldn't affect the hot-blooded hearts of the youths. All of them wanted to have a bright future. But if one paid attention, they would discover that this time around, there weren't too many students from the various martial academies. Because today was also the day when the Emperor's Star Academy would pay a visit to the Royal Academy. 5 days ago, the visit of the Royal Academy had caused the Emperor's Star Academy to lose all face, and became a hot topic of discussion in the royal capital. And at that time, Qin Wentian had stated that he would return the visit 5 days later. Many people were waiting to see how strong the response of the champion of the Junlin banquet, Qin Wentian. And after the merger, what kind of preparations would the powerful royal school make? It wouldn't be so easy for the Emperor's Star Academy to obtain victory. Even if Qin Wentian won 1 round, what about the other 4? Within the Emperor's Star Academy, in the central training ground where the Emperor's Star Academy had lost previously, Old Gu, Mustang and the other elders were all present. The participants this time around will be somewhat troublesome. Old Gu rubbed his temples, feeling a slight headache. Qin Wentian, Luo Huan, and Mountain were all here. These 3 could be considered the elites of the arterial circulation realm in the Emperor's Star Academy. The 3 of them were definitely going to participate in the Junlin banquet. The Junlin banquet was a stage for cultivators at the pinnacle of the arterial circulation realm. Qin Wentian and Luo Huan both had achievements there, and Mountain's performance wasn't bad either. He had also broken through to the 9th level of arterial circulation. However, Old Gu still felt a headache coming on. During the previous Junlin banquet, the Emperor's Star Academy's results were glorious. But that was only if Luo Qianqiu and Orkan were included. Now, it was naturally impossible for Luo Qianqiu to appear, and Orkan had also chosen to disappear. The O clan was originally a vassal of Chu Tianjiao, so how could he participate? Hence, for the top 9, only Qin Wentian and Luo Huan were left. But after the merger, there was still Chu Chen, Ho Tai, Shi Jun of the 10 prodigies, and Leng Ye of the godly General Martial Palace. Although they didn't manage to obtain the top 9, their combat prowess wasn't weak at all. I'm afraid that Chu Tianjiao will find an excuse to get Sikong Mingyue to participate as well. If that's the case, their lineup will be extremely strong. Old Gu was somewhat worried. Sikong Mingyue and Chu Chen were ranked 3rd and 4th respectively, while Ho Tai was ranked 6th. If Chu Tianjiao were to play some tricks and find an unknown expert at the arterial circulation realm, things would be even more difficult. Our lineup isn't weak either. Luo Chen walked over from afar, nodding his head to Qin Wentian. During the previous Junlin banquet, I was tricked so badly by you in 7th night. But after seeing your strength, I admit that I should have been eliminated. If there's an opportunity, let's spar again. Qin Wentian laughed. He knew that to a martial arts fanatic like Luo Cheng, if he were to be courteous, it would be an insult. But if he were to spar, Luo Cheng would be more than happy to accept such a challenge. Sure, for sure. Luo Cheng nodded his head as he smiled. Are all the 5 of us here? For now, there are only 4. There's still 1 more left. Who should we send out? Old Gu felt his head aching. What do you think about me? A weak voice drifted over. The gazes of the few of them shifted over, only to see a fat silhouette with a wretched look in his eyes. Qin Wentian blinked his eyes as he stared at the newcomer. So it turned out that this fatty was none other than Fan Luo. He actually wanted to take the initiative to participate in the battle. I think he can do it. only to see Mustang's eyes brightening. During these few days, he had been guiding Fan Lo, and he was extremely clear of the capabilities of this fatty. A few days ago, he stepped into the 8th level of arterial circulation. Although his cultivation base is still a little lacking, his bloodline power and unique innate abilities can make up for it. Not only that, he is extremely suited for group battles. Mustang rubbed his chin as he laughed, causing Qin Wentian to be slightly taken aback. Fatty Fan Lo had actually broken through to the 8th level of arterial circulation. This improvement was simply too terrifying. Seeing the look of shock on Qin Wentian's face, Fatty Fan Lo winked at Qin Wentian as he stated, "Fatty, am a genius. This fellow is indeed a genius. His cultivation speed is extremely fast, and not long ago, he managed to obtain a large amount of Yuan meteor stones from an unknown source. To think that he actually disregarded everything and absorbed the Yuan meteor stones madly, forcibly breaking through to the 8th level of arterial circulation." Mustang laughed. Qin Wentian nodded his head lightly. Back then, when Fan Lo first entered the Emperor's Star Academy, his cultivation base was already higher than his. According to Mustang, this fatty was simply too lazy. Ever since Fatty was captured by Mustang, other than cultivating, he would only spend his time on tempering himself. Even when he slept, he would control the amount of time he spent in his room. Since the decision has been made, let's move out. Old Gu gazed at the skies, only to see a gigantic demonic beast descending from the skies, landing in front of the crowd. Old Gu, as well as Qin Wentian and the other 4, all mounted their demonic beasts and soared into the skies. Because of the absence of Luo Qianqiu and Orkan, although the lineup of these 5 couldn't be considered extravagant, it was still extremely breathtaking. Qin Wentian, the champion of the Junlin banquet, Luo Huan, the top 9, Luo Cheng, the unluckier Luo Cheng. Mountain had already broken through to the 9th level of arterial circulation, and Fatty Fan Li's bloodline in addition to his talent allowed him to control the crowd. Now, it all depended on the lineup of the Royal Academy. How terrifying was the speed of an 8th level demonic beast. Not too long later, the griffins hovered in the air above the Royal Academy. Within the Royal Academy, countless people inclined their heads as they stared at the skies. The people from the Emperor's Star Academy had arrived. The Royal Academy was the same as the Emperor's Star Academy. They both had a central platform that was used for important battles. The griffins landed on this platform, and Chu Tianjiao and the rest had long since been waiting for them. Chu Tianjiao respectfully welcomed Senior's arrival. Chu Tianjiao bowed respectfully to Old Gu. Beside him stood Xiao Lu and the rest. Behind him, there were also 5 silhouettes. They were Xikong Mingyue, Chu Chen, Ho Tai, and Len Ye. As for the last silhouette, the 6 from the Emperor's Star Academy all had strange expressions on their faces when they saw her. She was actually an extremely beautiful young lady clad in white, exuding a sense of nobility and elegance. The little princess of Chu. Old Gu's eyes flashed with sharpness. Chu Tianjiao had truly put in a lot of effort for this battle. He even invited the little princess to participate in this battle. Although this little princess rarely appeared in front of outsiders, Old Gu was very clear that if she were to participate in the Junlin banquet, she would definitely be ranked within the top 9. Chapter 164. The princes and princesses of Chu were all extraordinary individuals. Other than the first prince who couldn't cultivate, the others all had extremely good talent. This little princess of Chu had an extraordinary talent for cultivation. Naturally, many people didn't know of this. After all, she was a princess and rarely went out. In fact, many people didn't even know of her. This lineup is very strong. There was a hint of worry between Old Gu's brows. Xikong Mingyue, Chu Chen, Ho Tai, Len Ye, and the little princess. On the surface, such a 5-man team was obviously stronger than their 5-man team. Even those from the Royal Academy had expressions of interest on their faces. The Emperor's Star Academy had lost Luo Qianqiu and Orkan, while the Royal Academy had merged with the godly General Martial Palace. Not only that, they had the support of Sikong Mingyue and the little princess. They really couldn't imagine how the Emperor's Star Academy could regain their lost face. How does Senior plan to fight? Chu Tianjiao stared at old Gu as he inquired. Since Chu Tianjiao was a guest, the host naturally had to follow the guest's instructions. Back then when the Royal Academy visited the Emperor's Star Academy, they didn't stand on ceremony and directly issued a challenge. 10 people battle, 1 battle to decide the winner. Old Gu replied. Momentarily, the gazes of the crowd froze. It seemed like the Emperor's Star Academy wanted to use Qin Wentian's strength to make up for the weaknesses of the others. But even if it was a battle of 10, they still felt that the Emperor's Star Academy was in danger. Qin Wentian, Luo Huan, and Luo Qing weren't weak, but Mountain didn't have much of an impact during the Jun Lin banquet. As for that fatty, Qin Wentian hadn't even seen him during the Jun Lin banquet. At this time, Qin Wentian and the other 4 had already walked onto the fighting ring and were looking at the opposite side. Sikong Mingyue and the other 4 also stepped forward, getting into formation, as though they had long been prepared for this. Chu Tianjiao's countenance was incomparably calm. It was as though he had long guessed that the Emperor's Star Academy would choose to engage in a group battle. But so what? In a group battle, the Emperor's Star Academy would definitely lose. The slap to their faces this time around would be even more resounding compared to the previous time when they visited the Emperor's Star Academy. Please enlighten us, Qin Wentian and the others said calmly, but the fighting intent in their eyes was already burning. Boom! Sikong Mingyue stood in front of the 5 of them as killing intent gushed out from his body. Ho Tai and Leng Ye stood beside Sikong Mingyue, while the little princess and Chu Qin stood behind them. In the direction of the Emperor's Star Academy, Qin Wentian stood at the forefront, while Luo Qing stood on his left, facing Ho Tai. Mountain stood on the right, facing Leng Ye, while Luo Huan and Fan Lu stood at the back. Both sides were in a formation of 3 at the front and 2 at the back. Sikong Mingyue and Qin Wentian once again faced off against each other. 2 terrifying auras clashed violently against each other, clashing head-on. On the fighting ring, an invisible gust of wind appeared, blowing on Qin Wentian's robe, making it flutter. The young man's face revealed a resolute expression. This was a battle for glory. They could only win. Today, all of the martial houses in the imperial city had begun to enroll new students. Countless people in the imperial city were watching this battle intently. They could not afford to lose. 2 terrifying auras erupted forth. These 2 auras originated from the 2 at the back of the Royal Academy, Chu Chen and the little princess. The power of their bloodlines was unleashed. This bloodline power belonged to the emperor bloodline of the royal clan of Chu. At the same time, their amethyst astral souls were also released. The light from the scepter shone brightly, and at this moment, the 2 at the back were the most dazzling. Beams of light shot out from the scepter, enveloping Sikong Mingyue, Ho Tai, and Leng Ye. In an instant, the auras of the 3 continued to soar. Amethyst astral soul, scepter, control, amplification. The eyes of the crowd flickered with madness as they witnessed this scene. Chu Chen and the little princess both had bloodlines and amethyst astral souls. With the amplification of the amethyst astral soul, the strength of Sikong Mingyue and the other 2 instantly soared to another level. I'm afraid the Emperor's Star Academy will have to scram back with their tails between their legs. Someone from the Royal Academy mocked. Today was their home ground. The Royal Academy had been suppressed by the Emperor's Star Academy for many years. Now that the Royal Academy had merged with the godly General Martial Palace, they could finally vent their frustrations. If they won this battle, the prestige of the Royal Academy would completely surpass that of the Emperor's Star Academy. Even old Gu's countenance turned heavy. Experts with dual bloodlines could unleash the power of the amethyst astral soul to amplify their attacks. The strength of Sikong Mingyue and the other 2 would reach a terrifying level. In the direction of the Emperor's Star Academy, the power of bloodlines also erupted forth. Fan Li's Empyrean flame bloodline was ignited, and his entire body seemed to be boiling. Bloodline. Qin Wentian's aura changed as well. His long hair turned the color of ink, and his entire person exuded the aura of a monarch. He was the king. The Emperor's Star Academy also has 2 people with bloodlines. The crowd was filled with anticipation. It was extremely rare for such a battle to occur, especially when it was between a group of geniuses at the peak of the arterial circulation realm. Senior sister, Fatty, control Sikong Mingyue first. Luo Cheng and Mountain, the 2 of you deal with Ho Tai. Also, Fatty, pay attention to the sneak attacks from the 2 behind. Qin Wentian spoke in a low voice. The 4 of them nodded their heads, as though Qin Wentian was their leader. Sikong Mingyue slowly walked out, and in an instant, the 5 from the Royal Academy advanced forward. Although they had the upper hand in terms of numbers, they didn't dare to be careless. Their opponents had Qin Wentian, and they couldn't help but be cautious. Control, I want to see how you can control them. Sikong Mingyue coldly laughed. His attacks were extremely tyrannical, and now that he had the support of 2 others, even if he clashed against Qin Wentian, he wouldn't be afraid. Luo Huan and Fatty wanted to control him as well. Fight! Sikong Mingyue roared in rage at Qin Wentian as he released his astral souls. Not only him, the other 10 on the platform, other than Qin Wentian, all released their dazzling astral souls. In an instant, the resplendent light radiating from their astral souls dazzled the eyes of the spectators, causing their vision to be greatly impacted. It was too magnificent. Among these people, none of them had an astral soul from the first heavenly layer. Their first astral soul was condensed from an astral soul from the second heavenly layer. Sikong Mingyue advanced towards Qin Wentian, his battle intent surging. His only opponent was Qin Wentian. Do it! Qin Wentian roared. In an instant, he and Mountain shifted positions, and at the same time, numerous long whips lashed out towards Sikong Mingyue, akin to tens of thousands of tentacles. Sikong Mingyue coldly laughed, as he directly grabbed towards the long whips. However, in the next instant, a thunderous roar of rage could be heard. Fatty, who hadn't moved at all, shot out a series of arrows in rapid succession. The arrows were akin to golden streaks of light, piercing towards Sikong Mingyue's eyes, extremely ruthless. Sikong Mingyue coldly laughed. He lifted his palms and blasted out the ancient slaughter character imprint, wanting to destroy everything. However, the arrows instantly changed direction, flying towards his side. In a short instant, the spectators only saw golden streaks of light dancing around the platform, extremely resplendent. Although the might of the arrows wasn't strong, if one was pierced through the eyes, head, throat or other vital points, they would all die. Right now, these arrows seemed to have eyes of their own. The moment one was careless, they would be able to pierce through their vitals and kill. What a beautiful scene! Someone exclaimed. Sikong Mingyue's countenance was extremely unsightly to behold, as he frenziedly blasted out the ancient slaughter character imprint. However, the speed of the arrows was even faster than his attack speed. When Sikong Mingyue was trapped, Luo Cheng and Mountain had already clashed against Ho Tai. Ho Tai's attack power was truly terrifying. However, Luo Cheng's saber was extremely sharp, and each of his attacks was extremely lethal. After Mountain broke through, his defense was extremely strong. It was impossible for Ho Tai to deal with the 2 of them. This scene caused the gazes of Chu Chen and the little princess to stiffen. It seemed like it was impossible for the 2 of them to rely on their augmentations to control the battlefield. Their opponents had 2 Wu Xiu with extremely powerful control abilities. At this moment, Qin Wentian had already advanced towards Lenya. His strategy was to first deal with one of them, before dealing with them one by one. Upon seeing Fan Li's current level of control, he was extremely pleasantly surprised. Qin Wentian's Garuda movement technique was incomparably ferocious. When he appeared in front of Lenya, Qin Wentian's heart involuntarily shuddered when he saw the demonic countenance of Qin Wentian. After which, Lenya's palms blasted out. This palm strike was none other than the falling mountain palms. Right now, Qin Wentian's falling mountain palms were getting stronger and stronger, akin to the pressure of a mountain peak. In addition to his terrifying physique, all of Lenya's counterattacks were completely crushed. The instant his palms came into contact with Qin Wentian, he understood that although he had the advantage in terms of cultivation base, in terms of strength, the two of them weren't even on the same level. The strength that erupted forth from Qin Wentian's body had too many augmentations. Leaving aside the advantage in the usage of innate techniques, the astral energy bestowed by his astral souls already had an absolute advantage. In addition to that, he had the mountainous divine energy, the physique of a demonic beast, and the boiling of his bloodline. Even against Lenya, who had a higher cultivation base than him, Qin Wentian was still able to completely suppress him. A thunderous sound echoed out as Lenya groaned in agony. His body was directly flung through the air, slamming onto the ground below the platform. He coughed out a mouthful of blood, and his arms felt as though they had been shattered. His internal organs churned violently, and he no longer had the strength to continue fighting. Qin Wentian only used a single strike to send him flying. From this, one could see how vast the disparity between the two of them was, and how tyrannical the strength of the top ranker of the Junlin banquet was. Chu Chen and the little princess knew that Sikong Mingyue, despite his tyrannical strength, was actually being suppressed by Qin Wentian. They knew that they couldn't afford to wait any longer. Exchanging glances, Chu Chen's silhouette flickered as he dashed towards the direction of Luo Huan and Fan Luo. This fatty's cultivation base was only at the 8th level of arterial circulation. What was strong about him was his ability to control and restrict the trajectory of his arrows. Only by dealing with him would Sikong Mingyue be able to focus all his attention on dealing with Qin Wentian. If not, they would all be wiped out one by Qin Wentian. I will restrain him. Wentian, you end the battle quickly. Luo Huan's silhouette flickered as she appeared in front of Chu Chen. Fan Li's ability to control his opponents was extremely strong, and he was able to delay Sikong Mingyue for a period of time. Sikong Mingyue advanced step by step towards Fan Lu, only to see Fan Lu dodging unceasingly. The arrows shot out in a frenzy, as though they would never stop. The golden arrows on the platform continued to dance in the air. Qin Wentian's silhouette appeared in front of the little princess, as a demonic light radiated from his eyes. That demonic aura he exuded caused the little princess's heart to involuntarily tremble. This was the first time she had met such a character. Even someone as noble as her, when facing Qin Wentian at this moment, actually felt a sense of inferiority and insignificance. At this moment, Qin Wentian had no idea that he was exuding an innate aura of a monarch. Chapter 165. Qin Wentian naturally knew that he had to end this battle as quickly as possible. Executing the Garuda movement technique, his silhouette transformed into a beam of light as he dashed forward. The forgotten imprint of the Thousand Hands imprint blasted out, engulfing everything in its path. The little princess lifted her palms to defend, but the might of her innate technique was extremely strong. However, it was still insufficient to contend against Qin Wentian's strength. Boom! A surging wave of air blew against the long hair of the little princess. Her beautiful hair fluttered in the wind as a look of arrogance flashed in her eyes. She refused to retreat, and was even more tenacious compared to Lenya. However, the person she was facing was none other than Qin Wentian. A piercing sound rang out, only to see Qin Wentian spitting out a sharp beam of sword light. At such a close distance, the countenance of the little princess instantly changed. She tilted her head backwards, evading the sword light. Qin Wentian's palms flickered, forcing her backwards. After which, he closed in on her, and when the little princess inclined her head, Qin Wentian's palm was already clutching onto her throat. The countenance of the little princess paled. Her quick-witted eyes stared at Qin Wentian with an expression of grievance, as though blaming him for ruining a flower. This fellow was truly too ruthless. Get down. Qin Wentian's palm slammed into the chest of the little princess, blasting her off the platform. He couldn't afford to lose in this battle. Naturally, he wouldn't show mercy just because his opponent was a woman. This bastard. The little princess coughed a few times after being blasted off the platform. She clutched her chest with both hands as she stared at Qin Wentian, gritting her teeth. However, Qin Wentian didn't have the time to waste. At this moment, Sikong Mingyue had already arrived beside Fan Lo, as the ancient slaughter imprint blasted towards him. Fatty, give up. Qin Wentian roared. After which, Fan Lo grinned as he directly jumped off the platform. He had already bought enough time for Qin Wentian and the other two. Qin Wentian had already dealt with Leng Ye and the little princess. This was already sufficient. Bastard. Upon seeing this scene, Sikong Mingyue's killing intent exploded forth as he howled in rage at Fan Lo, who had already descended from the platform. 9 ancient slaughter word imprints blasted out simultaneously, aiming for Fan Lo. Fan Li's countenance turned extremely unsightly when he felt the surging killing intent. He hadn't expected Sikong Mingyue to make a move at this moment. Go! Numerous astral arrows shot out from Fan Li's fingers. At the same time, his body actually floated upwards, evading the incoming palm imprints. However, the terrifying aftershocks of the palm imprints still blasted into his body, causing him to fall to the ground as his internal organs churned. Sikong Mingyue didn't bother with Fan Lo any longer because he could feel a terrifying killing intent emanating from behind him. He only saw Qin Wentian glaring at him, exuding a domineering aura that caused Sikong Mingyue's heart to skip a beat. Especially now that he didn't have the amplification from Chu Chen and the little princess's amethyst astral soul, his strength was definitely not a match for Qin Wentian. It was all that damnable fatty's fault. It was precisely because of him that their formation was in chaos, allowing Qin Wentian to instantly finish off 2 of them. At the instant Qin Wentian stepped out, Sikong Mingyue actually felt a sense of fear in his heart. The current Qin Wentian was even more demonic compared to before. That aura he exuded was even more terrifying than before. He, Sikong Mingyue, originally had an air of arrogance about him. But now, he was being suppressed to the point where he couldn't even see a shadow. Rumble. A terrifying palm imprint blasted out towards Sikong Mingyue, as the falling mountain palms were pushed to the limits by Qin Wentian. Sikong Mingyue howled in rage, as the ancient slaughter word imprint blasted out with a force that could topple mountains and overturn seas. However, under the might of the palm imprint, they were all shattered into pieces. Following which, Qin Wentian's palm imprint blasted towards Sikong Mingyue. Only to see Sikong Mingyue inscribing the ancient slaughter word imprint in the air, as the palm imprint blasted out. Qin Wentian's palm imprint trembled unceasingly in the air, as though that terrifying palm imprint contained a stacked might that could engulf everything as it descended. Boom! Sikong Mingyue only felt as though his arm was about to shatter. After which, a powerful palm grabbed hold of his arm as he stared at the devilishly handsome countenance of Qin Wentian. You are truly courting death. Qin Wentian's ice-cold voice was akin to the voice of the Grim Reaper, causing Sikong Mingyue to feel a chill run down his spine. Qin Wentian's left hand blasted out in a frenzy. Sikong Mingyue lifted his arm to block, yet a cracking sound rang out as his arm was directly shattered. At the same time, Qin Wentian's palm imprint blasted out, slamming into his chest. However, Sikong Mingyue wasn't flung backwards because his right arm was still firmly held by Qin Wentian. I concede. Sikong Mingyue coughed out large mouthfuls of blood as his countenance paled. At this moment, he was truly terrified. As the sound of his voice rang out, those from the Royal Academy were all dumbfounded. In a battle of 10, Qin Wentian's performance was actually so domineering. Sikong Mingyue, one of the duo prides of Snowcloud, how arrogant was he? Yet at this moment, in order to preserve his life, he actually shouted out the word, concede. Qin Wentian's palms trembled as he consecutively blasted out 3 palm imprints onto Sikong Mingyue's body. The spectators only saw Sikong Mingyue's countenance turning ashen as Qin Wentian released him. It was unknown how many of Sikong Mingyue's meridians were destroyed as he was blasted off the platform. At the instant he was blasted off the platform, the result of the battle was already clear. The current Qin Wentian was much stronger compared to the Qin Wentian during the Junlin banquet. Sikong Mingyue couldn't even withstand a single strike. Even if Ho Tai and Chu Chen were to fight against Qin Wentian alone, they still wouldn't be able to do so. Ho Tai and Chu Chen didn't continue fighting. They pulled a distance away from Luo Huan and the other two, turning their heads back to stare at Qin Wentian as a sense of helplessness welled up in their hearts. They had indeed predicted that the Emperor's Star Academy would propose a battle of 10 and had already prepared a method to deal with it. But with Fan Li's suppression, as well as Qin Wentian's tyrannical strength, their plans were all broken within a short period of time. Scram! Qin Wentian took a step forward, his gaze sweeping towards Chu Chen. That wild silhouette, that devilishly handsome countenance, caused Chu Chen to feel a sense of helplessness, not even daring to resist. Chu Chen's countenance stiffened as he coldly snorted and walked off the platform. Qin Wentian shifted his gaze onto Ho Tai, only to see Ho Tai smiling bitterly as he shook his head. If he didn't fight, he would automatically concede. If he continued, he would only be seeking his own humiliation. The students of the Royal Academy all inclined their heads and stared at the four silhouettes on the platform. Fatty Fan Lu also leapt up and walked to the side of Qin Wentian, his gaze filled with provocation as he swept his gaze over the crowd. Qin Wentian's gaze was sharp as he stood on the platform. He didn't say a single word, and only stared at Old Gu. Old Gu had a smile on his face as he led his griffin up the platform. Qin Wentian and the rest mounted their griffins as they soared up into the air, disappearing from sight very quickly. There were no complacent words, nor were there any arrogant words of contempt. After they won, they directly left, leaving behind the students of the Royal Academy. If Qin Wentian and the rest were to provoke and humiliate them, they would definitely be filled with rage and hatred. But now, they felt as though they were suffocating, unable to breathe. This kind of feeling was extremely uncomfortable. In the air, the griffin continued to soar through the air. Mountain grinned, seeing Chu Tianjiao in such a state. How satisfying. Your defense isn't bad. Luo Qing smiled at Mountain. This fellow had 2 astral souls, and both of them were proficient in defense. If it wasn't for Mountain, he wouldn't have been able to withstand Ho Tai's violent attacks. Your saber is also very strong. Mountain laughed. However, the most powerful one is still junior brother Qin. At this moment, Qin Wentian had already retracted his earlier aura. At this moment, he was once again calm and composed, like a radiant youth. Nobody would have thought that he would be so arrogant earlier, as though he was the ruler of the world. Senior Mountain, you don't have to praise me too much. Qin Wentian shrugged his shoulders. What's wrong with a few words of praise? I still remember the time when Luo Huan and I went to the Sky Harmony City to fetch you. At that time, you were being hunted down by the Yi clan, and you were filled with determination. In addition to the fact that Teacher Mustang regarded you highly, I guessed that you would have great achievements in the future. But who would have thought that you would surpass me and Luo Huan so quickly? Mountain had a silly look on his face as he patted Qin Wentian on his shoulders. He truly admired this junior of his. A look of reminiscence flashed in Qin Wentian's eyes. Yeah, time passed so quickly. In the span of a year, he felt that his state of mind had changed so much. Junior brother, in the future when you have great achievements, remember to come back to the Emperor's Star Academy to visit me. Don't forget that I'm here. Mountain joked. Senior brother, you intend to stay in the academy? Qin Wentian understood the hidden meaning behind Mountain's words. Naturally, he wasn't the kind of person who would disregard old friends after achieving great achievements. Emicham, I know my situation very well. I'm afraid that I won't be able to achieve much in this lifetime. Reaching the pinnacle of Yuanfu would already be my limit. After I step into Yuanfu, I will become an honorary elder of the academy. In the future, I will stay in the academy and guide the younger generations. I hope that I will be able to meet someone as talented as you. Mountain was still as silly as ever. Qin Wentian didn't want to change Mountain's mind. Looking at his honest senior brother, he smiled. If I really have great achievements, I will definitely come back to visit senior brother. Okay, remember your promise. I'm a thick-skinned person, I won't forget it. Mountain laughed. Why are you so sour? It's like we're going to part ways soon. Luo Huan glared at Mountain, causing him to scratch his head awkwardly as he replied, Didn't I see that you, junior brother, and Yu Fei are about to step into Yuanfu? Sooner or later, all of you will have to leave this place. Luo Huan's beautiful eyes flashed with a strange light. Although this big fellow looked clumsy, she didn't expect him to have such a meticulous side to him. Don't worry, even if elder sister leaves this place, I will definitely come back to visit you in the future. Luo Huan laughed. Mountain laughed again. The griffin swooped down from the skies. Below it, there were already many silhouettes gathered. In the vast public square, countless youths inclined their heads as they stared at the griffin, their eyes filled with envy and yearning. This was the registration ground for the 9 great academies. Qin Wentian stared at the pure and innocent eyes of the crowd. Wasn't this the same state of mind he had when he first stepped into the royal capital? Are those the seniors and students of the Emperor's Star Academy? Indeed, their demeanors are extraordinary. Someone commented in a low voice. Hee, you guys probably don't know, but the youth standing in the middle is none other than the champion of the Junlin banquet, Qin Wentian. Qin Wentian, is that Qin Wentian? The champion of the Junlin banquet, and the most dazzling genius of Chu last year? Grandfather. At this moment, a white crane soared through the air, arriving at the side of the griffin. The crowd inclined their heads, and upon seeing the silhouette on the back of the white crane, their eyes all froze. How beautiful! That's the number 1 beauty of Chu, Mo Qingcheng. Lass, you're here. Old Gu laughed. Didn't you tell me to come here? The Royal Academy must have won the competition, right? Mo Qingcheng asked. We won, and we won beautifully. Old Gu was in an extremely good mood. Mo Qingcheng's beautiful eyes flashed with a strange light as she glanced at Qin Wentian and the others beside Old Gu. Finally, her gaze landed on Qin Wentian. Oi! Don't I have a name? Qin Wentian shrugged his shoulders. Are you an idiot? Mo Qingcheng smiled sweetly. Okay, you guys will be in charge of the recruitment of the Emperor's Star Academy this time around. I'll take my leave first. The griffin landed on the ground, as did the white crane. After releasing the passengers, Old Gu immediately slipped away. Luo Huan sensibly sent Mountain and Luo Qing away, and even cast a glance at Qin Wentian, causing Qin Wentian to be speechless. However, when the champion of the Junlin banquet and the number 1 beauty of Chu stood in the Emperor's Star Academy's camp, it immediately became a beautiful scene, attracting the attention of many. Many people involuntarily moved closer to the Emperor's Star Academy's camp. Especially not long after, when the news of the Royal Academy's defeat spread out, some of the youths who had originally planned to register for the Royal Academy's entrance examination changed their original plans. Chapter 166. As the news of the battle between the Royal Academy and the Emperor's Star Academy circulated around, the crowd quickly realized that the Royal Academy's victory over the Emperor's Star Academy didn't mean anything. The Emperor's Star Academy was still the number 1 academy in the royal capital, its position unshakable. Qin Wentian and Mo Qingcheng stood at the registration area of the Emperor's Star Academy. Gazing at the faces of the crowd filled with vitality, the smiles on their faces were exceptionally radiant. Do you still remember the scene when you came to register for the examination last year? Mo Qingcheng turned her head as she asked Qin Wentian. Qin Wentian nodded his head. He recalled that when he first arrived last year, Mo Qingcheng and Nolan had passed by on a horse carriage. At that time, Mo Qingcheng had pulled open the curtains and smiled at him. Now that he thought about it, could it be that she was really smiling at him? At that time, you were still very young and inexperienced. Mo Qingqing blinked her eyes. She was clad in a pure white gown, resembling a fairy. Her slender and tall figure, coupled with her long hair, exuded the charm of a goddess. Many gazes were filled with envy when they saw the mischievous expression on her face when she looked at Qin Wentian. Maybe, only the champion of the Junlin banquet, Qin Wentian, would be able to enjoy such treatment. Am I very old now? Qin Wentian's lips twitched. Mo Qingqing's beautiful eyes stared at Qin Wentian, as though she wanted to size him up. The current Qin Wentian's eyes were as clear as ever, but compared to the past, his demeanor had completely changed. He no longer had that feeling of immaturity. A year's worth of tempering had caused him to mature a lot. Not only that, in the past, Qin Wentian's emotions could be seen in his eyes. But now, it was impossible to see through him. Being stared at by a great beauty like this, Qin Wentian felt somewhat unnatural. His radiant countenance had traces of shyness in it. Puchi. Mo Qingqing silently cursed in her heart when she saw this scene. The reason why she was so close to Qin Wentian wasn't because Qin Wentian was the champion of the Junlin banquet. Other than a coincidence of good fortune, it was also because of Qin Wentian's simplicity. This was something she couldn't see in the outstanding youths of the royal capital. Ahem, junior brothers and sisters still have to sign up. Qin Wentian was a little flustered being stared at by a beautiful woman. He secretly gritted his teeth. Why was he always teased by this girl? When Mo Qingqing saw Qin Wentian's expression, she found it even more hilarious. However, in front of others, she didn't want to show it too much. After all, she was different from others because there were too many gazes on her at all times. She didn't like such an environment, but since her grandpa wanted her to come here, she had no choice but to do so. After all, she was still a young girl, and her daily life was extremely boring. She only had one close friend, Nolan. She didn't really like such an environment, it was only because her grandfather told her to come here. Senior brother Qin. At this moment, a young man was running towards them. Big Mountain wanted to stop him, but the young man was agile and he managed to slip past him. Brat. Big Mountain scolded in a low voice, but he had a smile on his face. Clearly, he did not really blame him. Senior brother. The examination hasn't ended yet, how can you be so sure that you will be able to enter the Emperor's Star Academy? Qin Wentian couldn't help but reveal a gentle smile when he saw that the young man was only about 15 years of age. He was younger than him by a year when he first entered the Emperor's Star Academy. The young man had a head full of delicate hair, and was dressed in ordinary clothes. His eyes were big and filled with innocence, yet filled with spirituality. When he looked at Qin Wentian, his gaze was filled with worship. Of course, I want to be the same as senior brother Qin. I want to be the champion of the Junlin banquet a year from now. How can I not be able to enter the Emperor's Star Academy? The young man grinned. Keep on bragging. Big Mountain walked over and patted his head, causing the young man to scratch his head and stare at Big Mountain. Senior Mountain, since senior brother Qin can do it, I can definitely do it as well. Okay, I believe in you. Qin Wentian was extremely happy. There was finally someone who called him senior brother. Junior brother Qin, this fellow's name is Zijun. He's the same as you, hailing from Sky Harmony City. He's a genius, and his first astral soul originated from the third heavenly layer. The academy had already been paying attention to him, but who would have thought that this little rascal would be so arrogant? Big Mountain laughed. Although he was cursing and swearing on the surface, one could tell that he was extremely happy. Such a genius was extremely rare. Qin Wentian's heart trembled. No wonder this fellow would worship him. So it turned out that he was also from Sky Harmony City. And from the way Big Mountain seemed to like him, it seemed that he wanted to teach this little rascal a lesson after entering the academy. Little fellow, work hard. Qin Wentian rubbed Zijun's head. Mo Qingqing, who was standing at the side, couldn't help but giggle when she saw this scene. This fellow had yet to completely shed his immaturity, yet he still pretended to be so mature. How hilarious. Eh. Qin Wendian glared at Mo Qingcheng. In front of his junior brother Qin, couldn't she give him some face? Is this beautiful elder sister senior brother Qin's girlfriend? She's so beautiful. Zijun gazed at Mo Qingcheng with admiration. He had never seen such a beautiful girl before. Qin Wentian's eyes flickered, as he stared unblinkingly at Mo Qingcheng. He didn't say anything. This time around, it was Mo Qingcheng's turn to feel awkward. A bashful expression appeared on her face, incomparably beautiful. Upon seeing this scene, Qin Wentian couldn't help but to laugh. The corners of his lips curled up as he looked at Zijun. It should be soon. Mo Qingcheng, who was at the side, blushed even more when she heard Qin Wentian's words. She stealthily approached Qin Wentian and stomped on his foot, causing Qin Wentian to silently curse at how ruthless this lass was. Zijun's intelligent eyes flickered as he raised his fist towards Qin Wentian. Senior brother, you can do it. You too. Okay, little fellow, come with me. Mountain pulled Zijun away, but little rascal didn't forget to turn his head back and winked at Qin Wentian, causing a smile to appear on Qin Wentian's face. He really hoped that little rascal would always have such a simple and honest heart. Hiss. At this moment, Qin Wentian drew in a breath of cold air. Lowering his head, he stared at the beautiful leg that was stepping on his foot. Qin Wentian bitterly smiled as he turned his head to look at Mo Qingcheng, only to see her staring straight ahead with a complacent smile on her face. Indeed, it wasn't so easy to take advantage of beauties. In the direction of the Royal Academy, there were several silhouettes present. Chu Tianjiao, Yi Wukei, Xiao Lan, Wu Chong, and the other geniuses who had defeated the Emperor's Star Academy. Xiao Lan's gaze shifted towards the direction of the Emperor's Star Academy, landing on Qin Wentian as he mused, this person can be considered a rare talent. Although he has some grudges with Luo Qianqiu, it doesn't hinder me from pulling him into my camp. Since this is something that will benefit me, I might as well give him a chance. Who's going over? Tell him that I wish to have a chat with him. Xiao Lan spoke in a low voice. Brother Xiao, are you referring to Qin Wentian? Chu Tianjiao's countenance stiffened. Xiao Lan nodded his head. If he's obedient, that would naturally be for the best. It would also save us a lot of trouble. Brother Xiao loves talent, but I'm afraid that Qin Wentian won't be tactful. Although Chu Tianjiao was unhappy in his heart, he quickly adjusted his emotions as a gentle smile appeared on his face. He was very clear that Xiao Lan's status in the Nine Mystical Palace was even higher than Luo Qianqiu. Previously, when he contacted the Nine Mystical Palace, he didn't expect that they would send Xiao Lan over to Chu Wuk, make a trip there. Chu Tianjiao spoke to Yi Wuk. Yi Wuk's eyes narrowed, but he still nodded his head in a tranquil manner. After which, he walked in the direction of the Emperor's Star Academy. Qin Wentian couldn't help but have a bewildered expression on his face when he saw Yi Wuk walking in front of him. Yi Wuk first cast a glance at Mo Qingcheng, as a hint of adoration could be seen in his eyes. He had always been interested in Mo Qingcheng, as he felt that only a beauty like Mo Qingcheng would be a good match for him. Sadly, Mo Qingcheng had always been cold to him. Qin Wentian. Yi Wuk shifted his gaze onto Qin Wentian. What's the matter? Qin Wentian stared back at Yi Wuk, as traces of coldness flickered in his eyes. There's someone who wishes to see you, and wants you to make a trip there. Yi Wuk calmly spoke, as he pointed in the direction of the Royal Academy. Qin Wentian shifted his gaze in the direction of the Royal Academy, only to see several pairs of eyes staring back at him. Among them were Chu Tianjiao, Wu Chong, and that mysterious Xiao Lan. He discovered that Xiao Lan's gaze was the calmest when he looked at him. Not only that, he was standing in the middle of Chu Tianjiao and the rest. Qin Wentian suddenly recalled that back then when the Royal Academy provoked the Emperor's Star Academy, the first four were all extremely polite. Only when it came to Xiaolan, he was extremely arrogant. On the platform, Xiaolan was as tranquil as still water. Qin Wentian could faintly sense that the person who wanted him to go over was none other than this mysterious Xiaolan. Who is he? Qin Wentian turned his head, as an expression of unhappiness flickered in his eyes. These people were truly arrogant. If they wanted to see him, they could just come over, yet they directly ordered Yuwak to make a trip there. They had no one in their eyes. Qin Wentian didn't know that in the eyes of Xiaolan, this was already an opportunity for him. This was a form of grace to him, Qin Wentian. After all, Qin Wentian had already formed a grudge with Luo Tianya and his son. Although Luo Tianya and his son couldn't represent the Nine Mystical Palace, they were still members of the Nine Mystical Palace. Qin Wentian had already offended the Nine Mystical Palace, and originally, he didn't have any more chances. Xiaolan was giving Qin Wentian a chance, hoping that Qin Wentian would understand. You don't need to know, you only need to go over. Yuwak faintly stated. Qin Wentian could faintly guess that since this person was able to cause Chu Tianjiao to show some respect, as well as easily defeating the leader of the Heavenly Demon Alliance, Shuelengfeng, this person should be the same as Luo Qianqiu, from the Nine Mystical Palace. Mo Qingqing furrowed her brows, as though she was unhappy. Such an attitude made her feel extremely unhappy. If he has any matters, he can look for me. Qin Wentian replied, causing Yuwak to be stunned. After which, a cold smile akin to a sharp sword flashed in his eyes. Qin Wentian was truly courting death. After Yuwak returned to the Royal Academy, Xiaolan asked, why didn't he come over? He said that if you have any matters, you can go over and look for him. Yuwak stared at Xiaolan as he replied. Momentarily, a terrifying light flickered in Xiaolan's eyes. Instantly, the indifference in his eyes disappeared, replaced by a sharp glint of sharpness. Inclining his head, he shifted his gaze onto Qin Wentian once again. As their gazes met, Qin Wentian could clearly feel the coldness and loftiness in Yuwak's eyes. Who would have thought that such a thing would happen in a place like Chu? Xiaolan mused. If it wasn't for the unexpected news that the Azure Emperor might have left a secret in the Emperor's Star Academy, he wouldn't have traveled thousands of miles from the Nine Mystical Palace to such a small place like Chu. The matter regarding the Emperor's Star Academy has to be settled as soon as possible. I don't have that much time to waste. Xiaolan spoke to Chu Tianjiao as he turned and walked away. He was arrogant, yet low profile. Outsiders had no idea that the tyrannical young man from the Royal Academy was actually an important character from the Nine Mystical Palace. Maybe this low profile was because of his arrogance, because he disdained to show off his might in a small place like Chu. Chapter 167. This time around, the 9 great academies of the royal capital had finally decided on the last round of examinations. Just like last year, the Dark Forest. Perhaps it was because they believed that danger and slaughter was something that a martial artist must experience in order to grow, so all of the major martial houses readily agreed. After all, the applicants for the martial house's entrance examination were all youths, and many of them had never even seen blood before. They simply couldn't be called true martial cultivators. In this world where the strong preyed on the weak, the strong survived. Since you had already stepped onto the path of cultivation, you could forget about living a good life, unless you were willing to be an ordinary person. In the small town outside the Dark Forest, many adventurers would occasionally tease these youths upon seeing them. Life on the edge of a blade wasn't easy, and the appearance of these youths would always bring a ray of light to their lives, even if it was only for an instant. At the edge of the Dark Forest, the Emperor's Star Academy's camp was led by Qin Wentian, Mo Qingcheng, Luo Huan, Mountain, and Luo Cheng. Other than them, there was also Rain accompanying Qin Wentian. Currently, Qin Wentian had already become the target of the Emperor's Star Academy's protection. Precisely because he was too dazzling, there would definitely be many people who wanted to kill Qin Wentian. Although with the deterrent force of Gong Hong, there were very few who dared to openly act against Qin Wentian. However, it was better to guard against sneak attacks. The assassination attempt by Janice was a good example of this. Everyone, prepare to enter the dark forest. If you lose your life, you can forget about entering the Emperor's Star Academy. Mountain turned his head and smiled at the examinees behind him. Don't worry, Senior Mountain. The youth in front grinned. He was none other than the genius, Zijun. His eyes flickered with excitement, as if he was itching to go. Okay, let's enter. Mountain waved his hands, and immediately, the examinees stepped into the dark forest with excitement and nervousness. Qin Wentian's eyes shone with a radiant smile as he looked at the sprinting silhouettes beside him. Did you remember your experience last year? Rain sat atop a white horse, looking at Qin Wentian beside her. Her gentle countenance gave off a warm feeling. Yeah, I was wronged by someone last year. Qin Wentian laughed. Who are you talking about? On the other side, Mo Qingqing's beautiful eyes glared at Qin Wentian, looking extremely adorable. She knows very well that someone was very cold back then, Qin Wentian said. Didn't I already apologize to you? Mo Qingqing felt wronged as she glared at Qin Wentian. The two of you, stop flirting. Luo Huan giggled as she stepped forward. She was definitely someone who wished for the world to be in chaos. Sister Luo Huan, what nonsense are you talking about? Mo Qingqing felt a burning sensation on her face when she saw how ambiguous Luo Huan's words were. Nonsense? Junior brother Qin is such an outstanding person, and it just so happens that I like him as well. If you don't like him, then you can give him to me. Luo Huan cupped her hands in front of her chest. That seductive look of hers was sufficient to cause any man to be in a daze. Qin Wentian bitterly smiled as he stared at his senior sister Luo Huan. This senior sister of his really wanted his life. Mo Qingqing, upon seeing the expressions on Qin Wentian and Luo Huan's faces, snorted softly as she galloped forward, causing Rain and Luo Huan to burst out in laughter. Rain thought in her heart, sometimes, the relationship between humans and humans was extremely mysterious. The crazy words of outsiders could easily cause two people who already had a good impression of each other to slowly get closer. This last Luo Huan was extremely intelligent, and was clearly trying to matchmake the two of them. Rain laughed when she saw Qin Wentian galloping forward. Such a beautiful couple was indeed very pleasing to the eyes. The few of them galloped forward. Mountain, upon seeing the youths heading towards the depths of the dark forest, involuntarily said, I'll go and protect Zijuan. After which, he galloped into the depths of the dark forest. If it was in the past, he would definitely not do this. But with the example of Qin Wentian last year, in addition to the changes in the situation in the royal capital, Mountain couldn't be at ease. Seems like Senior Mountain really likes that little fellow, Zijuan. Qin Wentian turned his head, as he stared at Rain and Luo Huan. He wants to become a teacher and guide his students. Luo Huan laughed lightly. That's right, when Senior Mountain first came here, he already said that he would stay in the Emperor's Star Academy in the future. It seems that on Senior Mountain, there's a trace of Teacher Mustang's shadow. Qin Wentian murmured. Every time Mountain was by his side, he would always give off the feeling of a big brother. Although Mountain appeared simple and honest, there was no lack of calmness in him. This has something to do with his experiences. Mountain was a homeless orphan, and when he was 10 years old, he met Teacher Mustang. After discovering that he had a talent for cultivation, Teacher Mustang brought him into the path of cultivation, treating him as his own son and guiding him with all his heart. Hence, it's normal for Mountain to be like Teacher Mustang. The reason why he wanted to stay in the Emperor's Star Academy wasn't only because of his talent, but also because of Teacher Mustang's influence. The teasing look in Luo Huan's eyes disappeared, as she seriously spoke. Her eyes were filled with warmth. This group of people had all grown up together with Teacher Mustang. So that's how it is. Qin Wentian sighed, as he stared at the silhouette of his senior mountain gradually disappearing into the distance. Traces of warmth could be seen in his eyes. Luo Cheng, Fatty, let's go together. Senior sister Su, junior brother Qin and the rest will go together. Let's split up. Luo Huan spoke. After which, they split up into two groups. Although this was a test for the students, they still had to avoid certain dangers. Hence, it was still necessary for them to observe the situation. You guys chat, I'll go ahead and take a look. Rain spoke to Qin Wentian and Mo Qingcheng. After which, she took a step forward, leaving only Qin Wentian and Mo Qingcheng behind. This caused Qin Wentian to be speechless. How could he not understand the intentions of senior sister Su and the rest? They wanted to help him achieve his goal. In the quiet forest, Qin Wentian and Mo Qingcheng rode side by side. The atmosphere was extremely awkward. Mo Qingcheng glanced at Qin Wentian as she asked, Dumbo, can you tell me about your past? What do you want to hear? Qin Wentian replied, other than coming to the royal capital, I've always stayed in the Qin residence in the Sky Harmony City. I didn't do anything else. Didn't you do that with autumn snow? Mo Qingcheng murmured in a low voice. However, she soon realized that she shouldn't have asked this question. A mischievous expression appeared on her face as she replied, don't mind me. It's all in the past. What's there to mind about? Qin Wentian shrugged his shoulders. You're right. Mo Qingcheng smiled sweetly. In any case, you can always find someone better. There's no need to care about what happened in the past. Find someone better. Qin Wentian blinked his eyes as he stared at Mo Qingcheng. If there was someone better, the number one beauty of Chu in front of him was far more outstanding than autumn snow in every aspect. Noticing that Qin Wentian was staring at her, Mo Qingcheng's face reddened again. After which, she glared at Qin Wentian with hidden bitterness as she said, you bastard. As she spoke, she spurred her horse forward. There were even white cranes circling in the air. Wasn't I a Dumbo? How did I become a bastard? Qin Wentian scratched his head as he mumbled, smiling foolishly as he looked at the beautiful silhouette in front of him. In the blink of an eye, over 10 days had already passed since they entered the dark forest. The disciples of the various martial academies were struggling to survive in the dark forest, hunting demonic beasts. Only now did many of them realize how difficult the path of cultivation was. At this moment, Zijun arrived at a patch of forest. The long spear in his hands pierced into the head of a demonic bear, killing it with great difficulty. He then proceeded to cut open its head to extract its demonic core, placing it into a bag at the side. At this moment, his robes were tattered, and traces of blood could be seen on his face. However, his countenance was filled with a smile. He had already hunted many low-level demonic beasts. When he returned to the royal capital, he would be able to exchange them for Yuan meteor stones as cultivation resources. This way, his cultivation speed would be even faster. Every time he thought of this, Zijun would smile happily. He was determined to be the same as Qin Wentian. A year from now, he would strive to obtain glorious results in the Junlin banquet. With such a dream, he understood that he had to put in even more effort. Even if there were dangers, he wouldn't hesitate to do so. The expression on the face of the youth was filled with determination. Behind him, under an ancient tree, Mountain gazed at Zijun, his face filled with admiration. In the future, even if he wasn't as outstanding as junior brother Qin, the difference wouldn't be too great. Only to see Zijun carrying the bag containing the demonic core as he continued forward. At this instant, a sharp glint of light flashed in his eyes. Tossing the bag to the side, he brandished his long spear as whistling sounds filled the air. 3 terrifying arrows, akin to golden bolts of lightning, shot towards Zijun. Zijun retreated, his long spear continuously vibrating, transforming into a rain of spears. Dong 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 sounds rang out as the long spear collided with the arrows. Zijun was forced backwards from the impact, barely managing to block the arrows. However, at this instant, a terrifying long spear pierced through the air, magnifying infinitely in his eyes. Puchi, the long spear carried with it a terrifying force, carrying Zijun's body through the air. After which, it ruthlessly pierced into an ancient tree, nailing Zijun's body to the ground. The resolute smile on Zijun's face had completely disappeared. At this moment, a look of despair could be seen on his face as he lowered his head with great difficulty, staring at the long spear that had pierced through his heart. Why would there be such a powerful person who wanted to assassinate him? His eyes instantly lost their luster, yet they were still wide open. It was as though he had died with a grievance. He still had a dream he hadn't fulfilled, but everything had ended forever. No sounds came from the forest in the distance. Inside, pairs of sharp and terrifying eyes stared at the mountain. Their eyes were filled with a frightening coldness and killing intent. They were like cold venomous snakes hunting their prey. How intense was Mountain's roar! The people in the vicinity frenziedly gathered in the direction he was in. Qin Wentian was still together with Mo Qingcheng and Rain. When he heard that roar, an intense sense of unease welled up in his heart. That roar seemed somewhat familiar. Bzzz. Qin Wentian leapt off his warhorse, and a pair of wings sprouted from his back as he madly sprinted, akin to a bolt of lightning. Mo Qingcheng whistled, as the white crane that was hovering in the air flew down. Mo Qingcheng mounted the white crane and flew in the same direction. Rain soared through the air, following closely behind Qin Wentian. The unease grew stronger and stronger. Chapter 168. In the forest, there were many people gathered. Evidently, they were all attracted by the roar. However, they were all gathered there, as though they had seen something shocking. Qin Wentian came to the periphery of the crowd, his heart pounding. It was as though there was unease and fear in his heart. He was afraid that he would see something he didn't want to see the most. His footsteps became incomparably heavy. Qin Wentian took one step at a time, and finally entered the crowd. On top of an ancient tree, cracks could be seen on its thick trunk. A long spear had been pierced into the trunk, and because the force of the spear was too great, cracks had appeared on the ancient tree from the inside. And on top of the long spear, the silhouette of a youth was nailed there. Fresh blood dyed his robes red, and he had long since ceased to breathe. Yet, his eyes were still open, and within those eyes, there were traces of unwillingness and despair. He was still so young, filled with yearning for the future, and had already made up his mind to face the danger. But he didn't expect that this world would be so cruel. Life was mercilessly taken away, and the killer didn't even know who killed him. Boom! Qin Wentian felt as though his heart was struck by a heavy blow. His countenance was as pale as a sheet of paper. That youth who died in despair, wasn't that Zijun? He was still so young, brimming with vitality, and most importantly, he didn't die in the hands of the demonic beasts in the dark forest. That long spear was a silent declaration of war. Mo Qingcheng and Rain's countenances also paled. Their beautiful faces no longer had the slightest hint of a smile, and were replaced with coldness to the extreme. Qin Wentian continued walking forward. He didn't dare to shift his gaze away, but eventually, he turned his head and stared at a patch of forest in front of him. Over there, fresh blood had dyed the entire forest red, and a silhouette lay quietly on top of it, as though there were no longer any signs of life. Mountain was secretly protecting Zijun. When he saw the long spear pierced into Zijun's body, Qin Wentian's heart started to ache. Indeed, he had finally seen what he was afraid to see. Rustling sounds rang out as a few silhouettes sped over. Luo Huan's alluring figure was as mesmerizing as ever, but on that charming face of hers, there was only a bone-chilling coldness and agony. She immediately rushed to Big Mountain's side and knelt there. She stretched out her trembling hands, as though she wanted to caress Big Mountain's face. Her beautiful eyes were filled with tears. Silent tears. This was the first time Qin Wentian had seen Luo Huan reveal such a pained expression when she was smiling, not to mention the unending tears. She always teased her friends with a smile, but no one knew the sincere feelings behind her teasing. Arc Cheng, Fan Lu, and the rest also rushed to Luo Huan's side as they knelt there, their hearts filled with pain. Qin Wentian's steps were as heavy as 1,000 jin. As he slowly walked to the side of Zijun stretching out his hands, he helped Zijun close his eyes. Then, he pulled out the spear and carried Zijun to Big Mountain. He placed Zijun beside Big Mountain and knelt on the ground, looking at the two of them silently. Junior brother, when you have accomplishments in the future, remember to come to the Emperor's Star Academy to visit me. Don't forget that I'm here. Mountain's words still lingered in his ears. He was already at the 9th level of arterial circulation, and he would definitely be able to step into Yuanfu this year. When he did so, he would prepare to become an honorary elder of the Emperor's Star Academy. Hence, Mountain was very fond of Zijun. He wanted to nurture a disciple like Qin Wentian, and nurture talents for the Emperor's Star Academy. His dream wasn't too far away, it was very ordinary. He only wanted to spend his life peacefully in the Emperor's Star Academy. But now, everything had already become nothing. He was dead. Just a few days ago, he was still alive and kicking. His senior brother, who was like a big brother to him, had now closed his eyes forever. On his corpse, there were still a few long spears. The assassin wasn't just a single person. Someone wanted to kill them, but they didn't know if it was to kill Zijun or to kill Mountain. Sister Luo Huan. Qin Wentian called out, as Luo Huan stared at him. In the past, Qin Wentian would always refer to her as senior sister, but this time, he was referring to her as Sister Luo Huan. Qin Wentian stretched out his hands, wiping away the tears on Luo Huan's face. In Qin Wentian's eyes, there was a hint of a smile, but that smile was so demonic. This was the first time Luo Huan had seen such a smile in Qin Wentian's eyes. For the rest of her life, she would never be able to forget the smile on Qin Wentian's face. That was a smile that contained sorrow, pain, and determination. Qin Wentian's heart was probably feeling extremely unbearable right now. I know that no matter what we do, Senior Mountain will never come back to life. But the person who killed him will definitely pay a terrible price. Qin Wentian slowly spoke. Mountain wouldn't have any enemies in the Emperor's Star Academy. He came to the Dark Forest only to protect Zijun, and wouldn't have any conflicts with others. The person who killed him was equivalent to provoking the Emperor's Star Academy. The shadow of the royal clan was definitely behind this. If the truth was as he had imagined, he swore that the royal clan of Chu would definitely change hands. Definitely. As long as he, Qin Wentian, was still alive. Luo Huan's eyes were bloodshot. She heavily nodded her head. The person who killed Mountain would definitely pay the price. We have to inform everyone in the Emperor's Star Academy to evacuate. This person might not be targeting Mountain alone, but the entire Emperor's Star Academy as well. Rain also felt extremely unbearable. But as the oldest senior in the Dark Forest, she had to be extremely calm. Other than the few of us, the majority of the other students are still in the examination phase. Even if someone wanted to target them, they would only target us. Luo Cheng was also extremely calm as he continued, however, there's no longer a need for this examination to continue. We should inform everyone to evacuate, but we still need to leave the Dark Forest. Rain nodded her head, knowing that Luo Cheng was speaking the truth. The enemy was hidden in the dark while they were in the light. This was the most dangerous thing to do. Not only that, the students participating in the examination were scattered all over the Dark Forest. If the few of them wanted to search for them, it would be impossible. Rain soared up into the air, standing in the air as she roared, everyone who is participating in the examination of the Emperor's Star Academy, immediately evacuate from the Dark Forest. A powerful sound wave rippled out in all directions. Rain landed on the ground. She could only do this much. Luo Cheng was right, this was only an examination. Even if someone wanted to deal with the Emperor's Star Academy, it was impossible for them to deal with the students who were participating in the examination. Let's go out. Rain spoke to Qin Wentian and the rest. However, Qin Wentian didn't reply. After a moment, he spoke. Senior Mountain died not too long ago. The person who killed him wouldn't be too far away. I wish to go and take a look. No way. Rain decisively rejected. Qin Wentian's consolation was extremely important. If this was really the work of the royal clan, then to a certain extent, it meant that the royal clan wanted to take action against the Emperor's Star Academy. In the past, both parties could coexist peacefully. But once they shed all pretense of cordiality, there would definitely be a war. I only want to see if I can find any clues. Senior sister, I won't be impulsive. Qin Wentian appeared extremely calm. Seeing the resolute look on his face, Rain added, you can only search in the vicinity, not too far away. I'll go with you. I'll go as well, let's ride on my white crane. Mo Qingqing stepped forward. Qin Wentian glanced at Mo Qingqing before nodding his head, okay, let's move out now. I'll bring the corpses of Mountain and Zijuan back. Luo Huan calmly spoke. Qin Wentian and the other two mounted the white crane, following the footprints in the forest as they flew forward. The speed of the white crane was extremely fast, advancing forward. There are corpses of demonic beasts, over here. Qin Wentian spoke as he stared at the corpses below. Mo Qingqing communicated with the white crane to control the direction. There's a dense forest ahead. Rain gazed into the distance. Over there was an extremely dense forest, and it was extremely easy to ambush them. There's someone there. Qin Wentian's gaze abruptly sharpened. He saw a group of silhouettes below, as though they were one with the forest, silently retreating into the depths of the forest. There's someone nearby as well. The white crane swooped down, as a few silhouettes appeared beside it. Upon seeing them, a terrifying cold light flickered in Qin Wentian's eyes. Yi Wuk, Wang Teng, Wu Chong. These three were none other than the three who challenged the Emperor's Star Academy back then. Their silhouettes slowly soared up into the air, blocking the path of the white crane. What a coincidence! Get out of my way! Qin Wentian roared. However, the three of them continued to stand there calmly. Rustling sounds rang out unceasingly, and Qin Wentian saw several black-robed silhouettes disappearing into the dense forest. The white crane howled in rage as it advanced forward. Just as it was about to collide with the three of them, Rain faced Wang Teng on the left, Mo Qingqing faced Wu Chong, and Qin Wentian faced Yi Wuk. A demonic aura gushed forth, as Qin Wentian lifted his palms and blasted out. His arterial pathways thrummed as the falling mountain palms and forgotten imprints simultaneously blasted out from his left and right hands, as though wanting to destroy everything. Yi Wuk coldly laughed, as he blasted out with both his palms, causing a terrifying sharpness to erupt forth. As the attacks of the two collided, Qin Wentian only felt an unending stream of energy from his opponent. This was a cultivator at the Yuanfu realm, and the astral energy in his body was so vast that it caused him to be flung backwards as he groaned in agony. The white crane flew back, intercepting Qin Wentian's body. Rain and Mo Qingqing also retreated, only to see that the black silhouettes had already disappeared into the dense forest. Blood seeped out from the corner of Qin Wentian's mouth. His eyes were cold, yet incomparably demonic. Let's return. Rain spoke in a low voice. Mo Qingqing nodded her head. She knew that even if they continued to advance, they would still be in danger. Casting a glance at Qin Wentian, Mo Qingqing discovered that the current Qin Wentian had completely changed. He was now demonic and cold, with his black hair fluttering in the wind. Yi Wuk, you will pay the price for your actions. Qin Wentian spat out. The white crane flew back, as Qin Wentian's icy voice reverberated through the air. Yiwuk furrowed his brows, the image of Qin Wentian's cold gaze still resounded in his mind. At that moment, Qin Wentian was too demonic. You're tuning into the Blissful Bookshelf YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.